I do my best,
Yeah,
It's a bit
dude.
murky.
Eh, we'll put it
Yeah,
together.
I think all of our brains may not truly remember this stuff
I
Yeah.
mean,
accurately.
no doubt.
That's why we need at least three brains together to try.
Yeah, we got three brains on it, We should be able to remember something.
Yeah. So, dude, when I met you, and Matt, you're probably in the same boat, you'd already been around a little bit. So there's some early stuff that we weren't privy to, basically. So,
Yeah, yeah, the like some like late 80s. Because
yes.
I met you guys in like 91, stuff like that.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yeah.
I
Yep.
was kind of on my tail. Well, I used to skate your ramp, but y- um, I hardly remember any of those sessions though. I don't know what year that was. That was
That was 1992 or
Oh, really?
three.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All
Because
right.
I,
Yeah, so
I remember
uh
you coming out with who's the kid that you lived with off the Rock Road? What was his name? Um,
Ryan
no,
or
no, 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 no. He had a ramp in his backyard as well
oh,
too. You,
Sean Brown.
John Brown. Yes, you.
Sean Brown. Yeah, he had that huge 8 foot by maybe 24 wide, and it was bigger than his house.
Yeah.
Like it
Wow,
was in the
no way.
backyard and you could see it from the street like good 4
Yeah,
foot.
that was the house without
It
a
was
door, right?
yeah, his house without a door.
Wow.
It had a door, but the hinges were broke because it was a party house and somebody fell out of it, and or fell through it. And there was no carpenters. There was a bunch of kids in the house. And his mom and dad moved away with follow a church group
Oh wow.
and left him and his sister the house, so and they were
Yeah.
in high school. I think she was same grade as me, so she's probably like a freshman or something, and he was like a
God,
junior and with a fake
such a
ID.
different world, man.
It
Holy
Yeah.
moly.
was, it was
Totally.
like they
Holy
followed that
moly.
church group and they left the kids at home and dude, that was the spot to hang out. eight
I
foot
bet,
ramp
man.
in the backyard, no rules.
Yeah.
Damn, I
Jesus.
missed that.
It
I
was a
was
good time.
grew up right
Yeah.
around the corner, but I never knew about that.
Yeah. We me
Oh
and me and
man.
Brad Johnson popped in there a few times and we definitely like I don't think we hung out too much. I think we just grabbed you and kept moving. But I remember being like, damn, like it's just Lord of the Flies, you know?
This
Like
is kind of sketchy here.
well, it
Yeah.
wasn't sketchy. It was just like, wow. Um, but going back further, so were you born in Alton? Is it like that?
No, I was actually born in Agate, Guam. My
And
dad was stationed over there for
Oh,
the
yeah,
Navy,
yeah.
and
no
they
kidding.
moved from North County out. My mom followed him in the military, and I was there for, 3 years maybe, and then they moved to California, and then eventually to North County when I was, starting school.
No, oh wow. So what part of California were you in?
They were in Orange County.
Oh no.
I never like went to school. I was just, just an infant,
Mhm.
but at the beach a lot, and that's like really my comfort spot. I love to be on a beach or near the ocean, and it just feels good, being born on an island and then learning to swim right away. And eventually, though, I became a Midwesterner, and it's just lakes and shit like that nowadays. But
Yeah. That was
you know,
was that weird when you guys moved like that when you were or were you so young you were just like
I was so
whatever?
young, I
Yeah.
didn't know. I didn't know anything. I mean, I think that's pretty normal for a military family as they move quite a bit. And then he got out of he did his 4 years or whatever, and then he started working, and that was the end of it. There was really no more talk about, the Navy or anything like that. It was just the past.
Yeah. So you guys wound up in North County? Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
North County, St. John.
Oh wow. Oh
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I know, St. John. That's where Sean's ramp
Yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Weird.
so
Mhm.
I grew up, for the first part of my introduction to skateboarding was I was probably like 12. Like I lived in North County from like the age 4 to 12 doing normal shit, riding bikes, and just whatever. But right about that time where we were, riding mongooses and GTs and having wheelie contests and building dirt jumps and about about towards the end of summer of probably 1986, me and a dude were sitting up at Rittner High School, probably like 12, I don't know, at 13 at the most. And I'm just sitting there, we're bored as shit. We already rode all the wheelies and done got, our dilly bar at Dairy Queen. It was pretty much it. There was nothing else to do. And this dude comes up, like pre grunge, Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder look, long flowy hair, but like it was dyed like a purple strand,
Nice.
like a flannel tied around his waist, couple of different color of Chucks on, and spike bracelet. I'm like, dude, look at this guy, man. This guy is so different than anything we've seen. We're hanging out with soccer kids and shit like that, and he comes up and he's like, dudes, and we didn't say anything, and he went and did a varial wall walk on the wall
Oh wow.
and blew my fucking mind. I mean, I didn't see his hand go on the ground. I thought he defied gravity and walked and spun his board and landed on it. And then, like, he flipped his hair out of his face and then did a boneless off the curb and tic-tacked away. And
Did
my
you
mind was blown. That was John Corcoran.
John Corcoran? Who's Oh
He
wait.
played an
So you got to
Ultraman
know.
bass.
Oh
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
nice.
That was
Okay.
John Corcoran.
So you got
That's how I got, ever since then, since I saw that varial wall walk. I have been addicted to skateboarding. Like I didn't even have a skateboard yet. I was just like, dude,
Mhm.
I'm doing that. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I knew you had deep roots with like the Jameson brothers, but now I'm starting to
Yeah.
understand why, because you were from that
Well,
same hood, basically.
the
Yeah.
same hood. Yeah, we
Yeah, yeah.
skated the 170 ditch. Like that was our proving ground. And I think that I just really got obsessed with it, just because I was like, had really no outlet, growing up in North County, most of our parents were divorced and you had a lot of time on your hands, and when you didn't fit in with the football crowd and the soccer players and all that stuff, you're like, dude, I need to find a home, man. I need to have something to do. And
Yeah.
just skated hard. And then I was going up to Lincoln, Nebraska to visit
Straight.
my grandma in the summers.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and same, yeah, like that's like it was probably 86 after I saw John Corcoran do that wall walk. That winter, I went up to Nebraska, and for Christmas, I asked for a skateboard. Like I was stoked, dude. I mean, I hadn't seen Thrasher, I hadn't seen anything but that dude do that. And I was like, I don't have a board, I also got a couple of cool bikes and nobody skated, and I had no idea you could buy a Thrasher magazine up there at the Northwest Plaza, and so she's like, my grandma in Lincoln, Nebraska is like, well, I know of a skateboard pro shop down in Lincoln, Nebraska. I was like, you do? And she's like, you want to go there? I was like, yeah. So we went to Precision Skates.
No
And
way.
Phil Bircher, of
Yeah.
course, owned the place.
Yeah.
And I walk in, I'm 12, and he set me up with a Vision Gator,
Yeah.
Proper
Vision
setup.
shredders, the one with the Greek pyramid on it, the spiraling.
Shredders were the wheels, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the Vision shredder wheels
Mhm.
and some venture trucks. And I was like, dude, this is it. And couldn't do anything on it
Sure.
at all. But that summer went home and just skated like just sun up to sundown at the I-70 ditch, the Jamesons. Actually, Paul Jameson um, taught me how to compress in the I-70 ditch. He's like, I was like, how do you keep going? I could run start, and go up and try a rock and roll or something, but they could keep going. And I'm just like, this is so rad. Like, how the fuck is this happening?
Yeah, dude, I came across some old clips of Paul and Tim skating that ditch, and like
Yeah.
it's
Oh, no
that
way.
yeah, it's
Really?
that time frame you're talking about, like Paulie's shredding it up, you
Oh,
know what I
oh
mean? Like,
man.
yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah,
was so sick on that
yeah,
disc.
yeah.
Like people would line up on the side of the highway, like vans and just all kinds of 16-year-old jalopies, 16-year-old kids' cars, high
Kick on the
school kids.
flashers and go skate for a little bit.
They would. It was insane. Like there'd be 10 cars or so, and we would just cut through lawns and get there. And man, it
Yeah.
was it was like it was like the new ground back then. That was like something. It wasn't cracked too bad, and there was curbs all over the place up there. It was
Yeah.
like the spot.
I got to skate it in
Did
like
you?
probably like 86, 87 with the curbs. I don't
Yeah.
know who I would have seen there.
like dirt
But
rolling and
our
stuff.
parents used to drop us off at the parking lot on the
Adventure.
opposite side. Yeah, yeah. And they could tell like, oh, there's the because they wouldn't let us drop us off on the highway side. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, that was just
But we
too.
figured we'd tell them like, see,
They'll
you
let
can
you
see the
skate on the
ditch.
side of the
Well,
highway.
well, they'd drop us off there and be like, yeah, that's where we're going. We'll be right there. So they'd
Yeah.
be okay with it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, man, that
So,
was the best. That was so much
yeah.
fun.
That's cool, man. Who else was around like the North County zone at that point? Are you starting to like kind of get out and get a crew going type of thing, or are you just still new to it?
Yeah, definitely. That's like eventually, after a few years of skating under my belt, started skating with Joel Burke and Ike Meyer and
Oh yeah.
Nick Mullendor,
Yes.
and that's when we really started hitting it pretty hard. Like we were on the team. We were traveling to hit competitions, but
And
before
this was
that,
this Skates Plus
they were
or
riding for
Altered or
Skates Plus, and I was riding
Skates
for
Plus?
Altered. And
Yeah.
but I moved out to Alton, but I was, somebody would pick me up, or I would just spend most of my weekends at Sean Brown's house, and then go
Okay.
back to Alton during the week to go to school. But speaking of Alton, I moved over there like, I don't know, maybe 88 or so.
One of your parents
Um,
move over there? Was that the deal?
Yeah, my
Yeah.
dad and his girlfriend moved over there when I was up on in Lincoln, Nebraska one summer and came home and I'm like, dude, where we moved to Alton? I was like, there's
Where's
nothing here
that?
to skate. And so, moved in and started skating around with some local kids there, like I think like David Eckert and Rob Milletti was out, Joe Poole. Um uh, should a ton of other guys that I'm just not thinking of right off, but I will.
Yeah,
But anyway, I was skating around the high school and shit with those guys, and they're like, "Yeah, we go to Altered Skates. That's where we get our stuff." And I was like, "All right, well, let's go down there and hang out." I mean, that's like the best is hanging out at the skate shop. And walked in there, and Glenn was there, young Gino. I think he was probably like 26, maybe
Yeah.
Brad.
long hair, tie-dye shirts and everything.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I was like, hey, I heard you got a skate team. I was probably, 14, maybe 15, a couple years of skating under my belt. And he's like, yeah, we got a team, we got a few good guys and we go around to, do local demos and stuff like at the Y or wherever, high schools and stuff. I was like, well, how can I get on, dude? I want to do this. And he's like, well, everybody's been telling me you've been ripping it up, so just ask. I was like, oh, can I be on the team? He's like, yeah, and we just started ever since then,
Dude,
good
that's
vibes and skating around. And
yeah.
he would
So this
take
is
us,
86 or say
it was
80,
probably 88
87?
by now, because
88,
like,
88 by now. Cool.
yeah, it's hard to
So
keep
fun.
that straight, but I do
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that like I would say my high was probably like 91. That's when I was, going out to California and traveling more so in the Midwest for contests and
Damn,
shit.
dude,
That's
that's a
anything.
short window. Yeah. Think about that. 88
I
to
know,
like
like
92, 91. You know?
yeah, I kind of, you
Squeezed a
know,
lot in there, dude.
I kind of burnt myself out with it.
Yep,
That's
yep, yep, yep.
all I did. And
Yeah.
like missed many, I didn't go to like any high school functions or anything. It was all about skating and that was it.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
and
before we get off Alton, where was Altered Skates in Alton? I have no clue. Where
well, it
was
was
it?
like right across the bridge. I think what would be like Broadway or Main Street,
Okay,
right,
okay,
right, one block up from the river.
okay. Matt, did you
Um,
ever go there? Did you go to that location? I
Mm-mm.
never did. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
yeah, it was a rad little shop, man. He had
Yeah.
like a 720 video game in there and always had the latest gear. And then, Glenn was like the pulse back then,
Yeah.
dude. Like everybody would hang out at the shop and wonder what was going on.
Yeah.
What's there
Mhm.
to do? He's like, hey man, we're all cruising over to this high school to do a demo, man. And
Yes.
then you get there and there's like 20 like elementary school kids and a jump ramp that's bigger than everybody in the room, and then you just fly into a 360 method and you were good.
Dude, that's
Yeah.
incredible.
It was a good
And
time
that kept going for, 'cause I
forever.
don't think I I come a long way later in that picture, and there was still the same thing. I went to demos at a high school
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
with
I
a bunch
remember.
of like jump ramps and flat bars with everybody, all the crew, and
Oh
it was
man, I
fun. Yeah.
remember. I think when I first saw your footage of you skating, before I saw you skate, you were hanging out at the Delmar shop. At his
Mm,
second location, like you were
hmm.
hanging and riding with Jabari and Bruns and everybody, and you had like a sponsor me tape. And I don't remember a
Oh,
ton of it,
really?
but yeah, I don't
That
remember a ton
sponsor
of
me
it,
too.
but remember if you remember you were at you were skating uh Forest Park College, Community College,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
ollied from the handicap ramp over the rail and down the drop.
Hmm.
Dude, that blew
Yeah,
my
dude.
mind, dude.
That
'Cause
was
that was
big.
like chest high, dude, and a gap, like a 4 foot gap. Just the
Yeah.
rail was like chest high, and then you had to drop down the handicap ramp too. And I
Yeah.
just thought that was the gnarliest. Like I was like, dude, fucking Mitts is
I
fucking, and you had a
surprised
wreck.
myself with that
Do you
one.
remember that
Yeah.
though?
I, well, it's funny. At some episode we were talking. I think it was Science episode, like sponsor me tapes, and me and you were like, "Oh, we never did that." But there, I did have. I think at one moment I
It was a
tried
sick
because I
spot.
got on Altered, and I knew
Yeah.
Glenn was good at like talking to folks and did, and like I tried one time with Glenn. Yeah. I put a tape together. But
Uh-huh.
maybe you saw some other little videos
It
because I
could have
would put
been.
together little videos for and be like, Glenn, you should play this in the shop. Like it's all the
That's
crew,
where
like
I
just
saw it, was hanging
play
out
it.
at the shop. I'm just like,
Hmm.
whoa. Because I had been there and I'm like, just to get the speed to do that was insane because it wasn't smooth. It was rough. Super
That would
rough.
have only happened due to Timothy Bruns, who was on a fucking tear at the time. And
Yeah.
he went there and mine, like he said, I'm gonna ollie that. I'm like, are you serious? Like, so we went there because I he would skate handrails and shit all the
Oh yeah,
time,
but Wash U.
Yeah.
but I couldn't keep up. I would maybe like try some of the smaller ones. But that day I was like, I'll sit there, I'll try it, I'll lunge my body over it. And once I, did the whole like get the speed and did the whole like not ollied but jumped over it, I was like, I think I could do it if I hit my tail. I'm like, yeah. I think it was like first go. Yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, that
Because I
that
didn't want to try that more than fucking.
it was gnarly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Other
it
than
was
like, yeah,
huge.
the speed check bail and freak myself out, like, oh, you physically can get over this. Like,
Oh man, now I gotta
yeah, yeah,
try
yeah,
it.
yeah. But Burns was motivating in that way. He was
Oh
trying big,
man,
big shit.
he was
Hmm.
backsmithing those rails up at WashU
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
daily,
Yep.
and that
Yep.
was
yeah.
gnarly.
Yeah, right. Daily he was. It's like every
Hmm.
day he was trying a new
It didn't have to be a special event.
trick.
Yeah.
On the
Give him the
rail. It's
go.
like, whoa, Tim tried to. He's no, he did another
Nose
trick. Oh,
grind
cool.
like
Yeah.
all the time, lip
Hmm.
slide. He would just run through the basics of rail
Yep.
tricks.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
it
Yep.
was gnarly. Back then, it wasn't really basics. It was like the tricks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Huh.
not, yeah, yeah, pretty impressive, man.
I
Um,
guess he came to town not long ago when with Casey and everything, the memorial and stuff. I thought
yeah, he was
saw
back
Bruce for
here.
a little bit. Yeah, saw him down at Morganford,
Yeah.
Hmm.
good
Heck yeah.
spirits.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So when do you what happens after Alton? Altered and
After
Alton.
Alton, Glenn started on the Delmar shops.
Okay.
Like Alton was a good shop, and I think it stayed open, but he had like his buddy Aaron Whalen run it.
Oh,
Eh,
wow. Okay. I
Yeah,
remember
Aaron
Aaron
Whalen,
Whalen.
a fabulous cook. He's
Yeah.
he was just such a nice, friendly guy. He's no longer with us, but I mean, he was just great. He was so like Quimby,
Yeah.
Matt Quimby. Like
Yeah, man.
he didn't skate, but he was just there to fucking hang out,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
there to be cool, and hang
Yeah.
out and see if you needed anything. But so I think he was running the Alton shop while he was going to he's taking classes. Like I don't know,
Hmm.
but so Glenn opened that shop on Delmar, the first one by King's or
Skinker there. Yeah.
Skinker,
Yeah.
and he had a mini ramp in there,
Hmm.
and that was the thing to do. So at this time I had a license. Then I was 16 and would be able to drive over there and just thrash that. That we would skate that mini ramp all night.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like I mean, there was such gnarly skating going down there with Dave Cummings,
Ooh, yeah.
Joe Buffer, Jimmy Coleman was there when he was in town. Me, Pat Splat, JT, just
Wow. Yeah.
anybody that was skating were, Junior, Kerry Olson was down there all the time.
Hmm.
Just being just everything, just big time, because it was so tight. It was pool coping with an extension that
With
was just way
a
too big.
log. There was a log
Yeah.
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there was anything goes there. Like
Yeah.
whatever you could put up on the lip and do something on, it was fine.
Yeah. Dude, I saw that thing
But
like twice in my life, and I
Yeah,
was like
likewise.
so young and intimidated. Like, what?
it
How do
was
you
a
skate
gnarly
on that
ramp.
thing? Like,
Yeah. And it was just
yeah.
like 4 or 5 feet, but it
Yeah.
was probably a couple inches of vert with pool coping, you know.
Awesome.
God.
Super tight. And like you were drop
Awesome.
in and you had to be ready for the other wall immediately, because it was
Yeah.
tough.
So were people doing like, because it is vert, like were they doing like inverts and airs on it and shit?
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what, but I mean, I think the most gnarly over there was Joe Buffer.
Ah,
Mm-hmm.
He was just so stoic
Mm-hmm.
and like fearless. And plus, he looked pretty scary for back then. Like now he
Dude,
fits
yeah.
in like a normal dude, but like back
You're right.
then.
Yeah.
Like
Uh,
people weren't really getting tattoos like that, dude.
uh-huh.
And he had them up and down his arms, all over his neck, like spiders and triple six and stuff, and slick jet black hair. You were just like, dude, this guy is
oh,
like
he's been
might be
running that style forever, huh? Like that.
Yeah.
ever
Oh,
since
really?
day
It's
one, dude. Like
it's
jeans.
stood out even years after that when Glenn had that Schlafly ramp and he
Yeah,
was like coming around skating that thing and
and
Oh,
like
yeah.
he just
coming out and just ripping
just
Smiths that are across
ripping, dude.
20 foot
Oh.
across that thing.
Like he
But
wouldn't even
yeah,
warm up,
we'd
man. He would
call
just
him,
drop in and do like blunt fakie and then do like a
yeah,
half cab 5-0 to fakie, You're
yeah.
just like,
But
how the
even then it
fuck?
stood out like not many people had that many tats,
No,
even
not at all. Like it
late
was not,
90s like
yeah, it
that,
was not like a hobby like
Today
it
it's
is
just
now.
like
Like anybody just get a ton of like he had knuckle
mm,
tattoos
Mm.
and shit, and you're
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
has this guy been in the joint?
Right.
But he was just like a regular dude, like super nice,
Yeah.
but gnarly as fuck in every way, in a physical, and then his skating
Hmm.
was even gnarlier, and it's just like, dude.
Yeah.
And he would just get Dave Cummings all wound up, and
Yes.
Junior, oh my God. And then, and
Yeah.
I was more of a street guy, so I would just try shit, but just try to go crazy because they were more ramp guys, and I could ride mini, but I was more, wanted to skate stairs and ledges and shit. And is that's how I actually got on BBC, is in front of
Yeah,
that
great
stop.
transition. I was wondering, like, where does that stuff start to come into play?
Well, yeah, because Glenn had Life's a Beach BBC guys come in, and Jamie Mousberg was team manager at that time. And I mean, Reese Simpson and I think Brian Pennington were in town, just ripping the shit out of that mini ramp. And I was just like, God, I got to go skate. I can't get in that because that's too intense, So I went out front and I was just ollieing over this little, step ladder,
Hmm.
like a 2 or 3 foot step ladder thing, just doing, 80 stuff, 180 melons over it, pop shove its or whatever, and just doing flip tricks, not over the ladder, but ollieing the ladder a lot, doing backside 180s over it, late shove its and shit like that, and Mouse is out there. I don't know for whatever reason, but he's like, "Hey, what's your name?" And I told him my name, and at that time I was entering NSA.
Oh, that was going on back then at that point.
Well, actually, I placed. I'll go back to it, but I was going to regionals and I didn't have a board sponsor.
Okay.
I made it through districts, and I was set to go to regionals in like Fort, or maybe I don't fuck if I know for
Yeah.
real.
That's
But
all good.
he
Yeah.
was like, so you're headed to regionals and you have a board sponsor. I said, no, I'm just riding for Altered, and I was getting moto built trucks. And
Ah.
And
Huh.
he's like, well, here's a 1-800 number. Whenever you need boards, call. And I was like, okay. I
Wait,
didn't
wait, wait,
know.
wait, wait. Hold on. 1-800
He
number.
gave me
What?
a 1-800 number.
Who picks up the
That's a
phone on the
hookup.
other end?
And the life's the beach. Like it would be just a regular administration person.
You'd
And
be
I was like,
like,
can I speak to Mouse? And they're
oh,
like,
they
yeah,
would
hang
put you
on a
in with
minute.
mouse. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
hang on a minute. And he'd get on the phone and be like, hey, Kyle,
Oh,
I'm like,
nice.
hey, I need, I want to, I always rode the minis. I need a mini Jeff Phillips. That's what I mostly rode. And then I started riding other stuff like the Jason Parks was ended up being my main board.
Nice.
But so yeah, I went to regionals and started writing all BBC stuff. And it ended up, I think I got seventh place, and or maybe it was the year after. I don't know. I did the NSA 2 years.
So hold on. A lot of people don't understand this, and I'm kind of coming up short too. What comes first, districts or regionals?
Districts.
Districts
Yeah,
first,
so
then you
yeah,
go to
districts comes
regional,
first, and then comes regionals, then
then
finals.
finals. Okay, so
And in the
where were districts? Do you remember?
Yeah, definitely because it's surprising that I can remember because it it actually this was the first time I got stoned oh, fuck, dude. So Glenn, he's like, "Hey, I'm taking a team up to NSA districts this year." And this was right before what I just talked about with getting on BBC.
Yep,
We were
yep.
all none of us, it was myself, John Buellhorn, Kevin Stallings, Nivik, like Pat Splatt, maybe Todd Fuller, and maybe somebody else, but I'm not. I don't know. There's about 6, 7 of us, and so we all piled in a van, and then we were headed to Rockford, Illinois,
Rotation station,
the
yes?
rotation
Hmm.
station.
Okay, okay.
And so we get up there, and Glenn's like, "Hey, of course, he's like, I got a buddy. We're all gonna stay in his basement, you know."
We're all gonna stay in his basement. Love it.
So we pull into a parking lot to meet his buddy. His buddy is Dave Geist, and so Dave pulls up in his car, and I'm kind of just like, I didn't feel like skating a parking lot. Everybody piled out and was just thrashing the shit out of like a tiny 3-inch drop. We're at like a Kroger grocery store or something, or an IGA. And they had a shopping cart rack that people were trying to get a board slide on, but it was just sliding all over the asphalt. So I was like, I'm not even getting involved because we're here to compete. The last thing I need to do is get blown out in the parking lot the night before. So Dave and Glenn were sitting in the car, and I was in the back seat, and they're like, and there's doing one hitters, and they're like, you want one? I was like, oh, I never tried that before, but it's my dad smokes it a lot, and so he's like, yeah, take a hit. So I took a hit. I was like, this isn't doing nothing. And somehow they got out of the car, so I was like, I'll do a couple more until I at least feel something. So I did like two or three more and got so fucking stoned that I felt like that I was in like a Bugs Bunny cartoon, dude. I got out of his car and just like spacewalked across the parking lot. Like, just, I have no idea the feeling I had. I'd never felt like that before. I was
That
just so like
sweet,
on.
sweet Rockford weed, huh?
Oh my God, I was so ripped. So I sat in the van as I was at this point I was just paranoid to move. I couldn't do anything. I was like, I'm not doing anything. I feel like I've smoked myself into like I'm retarded now. And so then we ended up going back to Dave's house, and they had like a big like spread for us, a bunch of food and everything. And
Perfect.
I know, and I was like too stoned to like function. And Glenn is like, dude, you gotta mellow out, man. You gotta rein it in, buddy. Just like chill. Don't think about it. Just walk around
I
and
could
stuff.
totally hear him saying that.
And I'm like, what? And my words were like, wah, wah. So like I spaced out and like crawled into a doghouse.
Literally a doghouse.
A
Yeah.
real doghouse that was down in this basement. And I remember getting in there just like hair all over me. And I was just fucking blown out. And this is like, it was starting to get on my nerves. I'm like, but somehow, some way, I ended up like falling asleep in there. This is like the
Crazy.
biggest contest of my so far, like this is me as a skater, you know? Like this is
Yeah.
like it was like a big deal because my dad had to pay the entry fee. I was out of town for the first time in my life without a
Dude,
parent.
there was probably a lot of people showing up in the
There
contest from like
was, dude.
Chicago and Milwaukee and
Yes, dude.
stuff. Yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
didn't even know this yet. I was just like totally bummed because here I am, I've been
Covered in dog
training,
hair.
been skating, I'm
Yeah.
covered in dog hair, ripped out of my mind, can't think straight. And I'm
Might be better
probably,
than
you
pounding a
know,
bunch of whiskey or beer, though. But
it's true.
to
Yeah,
be able to
yeah.
skate the next day at least.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like I woke up the next morning and I was
Still
straight
stoned.
for a minute. And
Yeah.
then I was like, hey, everybody, I felt like myself. So then we were fueling up on like Captain Crunch and Lucky Charms. And I don't know if the food got in my stomach and started processing, dude, but I was more stoned than I was the night before now. And we were all piling into the van, and like everybody, I felt like I was staring at me, and they're like, "What?" Asking me what was wrong. 'Cause I was usually a nut, I'm usually bouncing off the walls like Woody Woodpecker or something. And they're like, what are you doing?" I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
So then I was kind of like still all geeked out, like these guys are gonna think I'm like a drug addict or something, dude. All I did was smoke a little bit of weed. So we get to the place and it is like you said, packed, dude,
Yeah.
like packed, man,
Like
like
good
every
skateboarding going on. Yeah.
good skateboarding is
Yeah.
going down.
Yeah.
So now I've got cold feet, now I'm too stoned and now I'm like, holy shit, dude. John Buellhorn was raging, dude. Like
Wait,
he
skating raging or loud raging? Because he can do both.
both. Yeah, he
Okay.
was he was ripping
Both.
on all levels. And he brought a chick with him. So he was like way on cloud nine. We were just like couldn't believe like they were like high school people, like, they're like, man, they're like prom king and queen around here, dude, because he was older and she was clearly like a young woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just like, whoa, they're the adults. But and John was skating like insane, dude. He probably would have got probably top five easily. He broke his ankle.
Oh God.
Damn.
Yep, on
Jesus
a feeble.
Christ.
There was like hips, with an island, and then there was like a spine ramp where you could board slide it. And him, Rob Deerdick and a couple other dudes were feeble in it like every time. That was like the top trick. That's what like the good guys were doing. And I couldn't skate. I was too high. Like I missed practice the first day.
Oh
I was
shit.
that was like Friday afternoon. And like Pat Splat was killing it.
Right
He
on
was
a
doing
Friday.
fried on a Friday, dude. And Glenn's like, he's like, dude, you gotta skate. I was like, I can't.
Dude,
He's
bumming the
like,
coach out.
oh,
Fuck.
he was, and I was just so bummed, dude. I was just like, I had my music picked out and everything. I was gonna come out to Pocket Full of
Please.
Stones or something like that by
Yes.
UGK, or It was Pimpin' Ain't Easy with UGK.
Hell yeah, dude.
So Friday goes by, and like I'm having lucid moments, but not really.
Just still out
Eh,
of it the whole day, yeah?
Dude, I'm not kidding. Out of it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I've
yeah.
never been that stoned since. And I've asked
Chasing it.
Glenn about it, and he's like, "Yeah, it's just some regular weed, dude. You're just
That
really high,
Rockford weed, man.
some Rockford funk." So then Friday comes and goes, and we're back on Saturday. And Sunday's the contest. And Saturday, John breaks his ankle, and he's bummed. That kind of just captivates the team for we're just like, "Oh fuck, dude, that was our fucking lead horse," you know. And I think he was probably eight. He was whatever older he is than us. But he
Right.
was like, I'm not kidding, like he was like making an impression. I think he was probably riding for Zorlak or something at the time.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Thick. Yeah.
And so he's out, and then Glenn's like coming around to me every now and then, like, dude, you been riding? I'm like, no, I don't have my stuff even out of the van. He's just like, and so he gives me like a coach talk. He's like, listen, your dad like gave me money for you to come up here, and I know you've been working on, your melons. He whatever tricks he knew to throw out there, kick flips and stuff. He's like, I know you've been doing this stuff and everything. He's like, I'm pulling for you, bud. And I was like, dude, I just don't think I can go because I just feel too weird. Like I feel like I'm out of my body, but not like.
I was right in the middle of a fucking reptile zoo.
like not in time with myself, like even now, like I remember telling him I'm talking right now, but I don't really know if I'm out of sync,
Du Mensch ist halt Henry.
Please tell me about the fucking golf shoes.
you know? And he's just like, you got to pull it together. And so I didn't skate, all Saturday. So Sunday came around. I haven't skated since fucking Thursday when we left St.
Were
Louis,
they
dude.
having like qualifiers throughout the weekend? Was it like that?
No, it was
Oh,
just one big for all.
okay.
Like there was
Okay.
probably like 30 of us there that entered that you had to have like a shop sponsor
Sure.
and or have won
Yeah.
a local contest or something. So
Yep.
there was probably like 30 people there and they had heats all day on Sunday. So they went, I don't know, maybe there was more than 30, but I was out of it, dude. I just saw like some really sick Rob Dyrdek was there.
Mm.
He came down from Ohio and I was just like, dude, he had like a broken finger and he was just gnarly as fuck. And he
Oh,
would only skate for like a minute and then leave.
I would imagine like was Jesse Newhouse around and like that whole squad?
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And so Sunday came around and I was, still bumming. And Glenn's like, dude, you got to skate. You're up in like four or five guys. And so then they had a break. And I think, you had an offer skate. And I was like, I got to skate, dude. I can't not skate. I'm up
Yeah.
here to skate. And I'll hate myself if I don't skate. So I geared up, put all my stuff on, and then just went out and just fucking just got into like just doing easy stuff, warm up shit. And it was actually kind of feeling it, but not like I should be by now on the third day. But I was like, I think I can skate. And so then we all pull back and then they have, rider one go and you got your 60 seconds or whatever. And then I started getting all nervous and shit, like, oh fuck, dude, this shit, I'm stoned. I can't fucking skate in a contest. This is
3 days
like
later.
yeah, I know. And then they played that Pimpin' Ain't Easy. UGK came on over the loudspeakers. Like right now I'm kind of getting chills about it. And I was like, oh, fuck, it's my turn. So I just stormed out there like bat out of hell as fast as I could and just did like 50-50, revert, big melon over the hip. Like I had no idea how I was landing tricks, dude. I was just like at splash or something. It was like one of the most like on moments that I've
Just
had.
all came together.
It
Yeah.
all came together,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think I bailed, maybe like a board slide on the, the big long, they had a really long, like 20-foot, board slide thing that, PVC coping and shit. Did
Yeah.
like a blunt fakie, 180 blunt, and I just did like normal shit, but I just didn't bail. And that was it. I didn't even take a second run. I was like, I'm not going again.
One's enough.
I didn't, I mean, I was like, I can't do any better than that. And then that was enough to place.
What'd you
Uh
place?
That's
About,
like,
would you say
I
seven?
I placed 10th out of I don't know what the cutoff was, but I made it to regionals.
Oh, sick. That was the cutoff.
That was the cutoff or something like it, top 15 or something
Okay.
like that. Like, but I was the only one out of our crew that went up there that ended up, getting the go ahead, and I was stoked. I was like, no way, dude. But lesson learned, I didn't like smoke weed again until I was
Yeah.
probably like 20.
Yeah.
definitely not
It
before a
was like a
contest.
long, like I was over that. I'm like, I am never doing that to my brain again. I'm lucky I came out of it. I thought like I was in a coma, dude.
So,
And then that's how I got the ticket to
Uh,
regionals. And then later on, like a couple months later, that's when I met up with Mouseberg to get on BBC for
okay.
regionals.
Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. And BBC was boards and clothes, right? It was the whole thing.
Yeah, it was Life's a Beach,
Yeah.
clothing, and then BBC boards, and
Yep.
I mean they full on like sent great packages, big sticker packs, the Elroy shorts, remember
Nice.
how rad those were, Felix the cat,
Yeah, dude.
yeah,
yeah, and plus Gons was riding for Life's a Beach, so I was hella stoked, man. I thought, man,
yeah.
dude, I was really into it and rode for them for several years,
It was that long? Really?
at least 2 years,
No
yeah.
kidding.
You
Were
Wow.
know,
you on when because don't they get the Everslicks going? Were
I think
you
I was over that. I think
right
that's
before that or
when,
something?
well, what took place was I went to NSA the next year and started doing, fairly well, and then made it to finals. The
Okay.
regionals that I got on BBC, I didn't place. It was like Fort Wayne, Indiana. I think Jesse Newhouse won, and I
And then
just,
you were in Georgia too, weren't you? Or
that
in
was
Atlanta?
finals the year later.
Okay.
And that was a pretty intense heat. But meanwhile, I went through districts and then regionals, and that's kind of where I met up with Casey and everybody at that Springfield NSA. And there
At
was like,
Reds. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was pretty intense. And then by the time I was going to finals, I was out of Chicago. I moved to Chicago
That's right. To the
in
northern
with my
suburb,
mom.
northern
Yeah.
suburb somewhere
A
up there.
northern suburb, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh wow. I
Like I
didn't
just
know
got
that.
tired of the scene, in North County. It was just Splash and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I was like, I
Um,
got to get out of here.
were I was under the impression you lived in Rockford. Is that not accurate, or was it close by?
Well, it was close by. It was actually about an hour or so, but that
So
was
like in
like the
between
training place.
Chicago and Rockford or
Yeah,
something?
like a west. It was Algonquin,
Oh,
Illinois.
yeah. I know that
Okay.
You
zone.
know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And but I was going to Rockford every weekend once I told BBC I was moving to Chicago and they're like, "Yeah, what part?" And I was like, "Algonquin." They're like, "Well, we got a rider up there, but he rides bikes." His name his brother skates. It was like his brother was Tom Lowell.
Tom
But
Lowell.
the guy that rode bikes rode for Life's a Beach and BBC, but just bike division.
Oh wow.
I can't remember his name, but Mouseberg's like his brother skates, so you might want to call him. Maybe he can show you some spots. And I was like, what a rad tip.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
had no
that's
idea, but
right.
I was moving up there, because it was better going than, North County and, you
Something
know,
different, just change of
something
pace
different.
nonetheless,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
and
yeah.
I had been going to Rockford for NSA twice, and I was like,
Yeah.
might as well get near
Rotation
it.
Station at the time was
The
It
an
was
spot.
amazing skate park. Oh
Yeah.
my
Oh, it
God.
was
That
great,
was
man.
a
They had a
little bit of
ball, they
heaven.
had divert, they had the spine.
Hmm.
So I started training there, and that's really when I really like probably locked in like most of my big, like my heyday would be
So
the
it's
Rockford days.
funny you were talking about with BBC, like, hey, I was, or more like skating the back of altered. I was more of a street guy, but dude, when I knew you, you were like crushing
Yeah.
transition. So you must
Hell
have picked
yeah.
that up somewhere.
That was mainly Rockford
Okay, that makes
because
sense.
Hmm.
that's all I was doing was training for like contests. I
Dude,
was like
you
pre
got
SLS
winners.
days, like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
doing contest runs like all the
And you could
time.
skate all through
Yeah.
the winter. You had a place
All
to
through
go. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
That's exactly what I
Yeah.
did. And that's when because I NSA was like Tampa Am back then. Like if you completed finals, you had the go ahead and go to the next level and talk about being pro. If you had some offers, then you did, or your current sponsors would turn you pro or whatever it was. And that's what I was training for. I was like, this is what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna place well down there and so at that point, though, I'm not sure how I transitioned, but I ended up quitting BBC to ride for John Vallie, New School.
Oh, wow. While you were up
New
Yeah,
there?
school.
yeah, while I was up there, and I'm not sure because I was traveling quite a bit. It may have been through Glenn. He may have said, like, hey, Alva's got a new team, New School, and I was telling John Fowley about you that you're, heading to finals and all that stuff, and he's pretty stoked because he's looking for some new pro riders or whatever. And I was like, well, cool. So I ended up going and giving him a call and he's like, yeah, I'll send you some boards. Having a sponsor at the time and going through NSA, you already had credit. It
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
like you could just say my sponsor me tapes coming in the mail and that was enough. They're
Mhm.
like, yeah, send us some video when you get it. We'll send you a package, tell us what you think, and just make sure you wear our stuff in the
So
finals
you
and
were
shit.
kind of the tail end of contests were still the important thing. It wasn't so
It,
much of a video part. Like, hey, I got
Totally.
third place
Like
in district.
I hardly
Yeah,
ever made videos.
yeah.
It was always the NSA. And then I was going to San Diego to compete in those local contests too, just trying to, while I was living in Chicago,
Yep.
my stepdad worked for the airlines. American Airlines, so I could
Oh,
fly
Got
for
wow.
those
free.
AAA passes or family
So what
passes
were
or
those
whatever.
castle contests or
Something like that.
yeah, huh.
It wasn't, I don't know. I would just go and, well, I went out there for new school, you
Okay.
know,
Oh, no way.
to kind of like audition or, they were
Mm-hmm.
sending me stuff, but they haven't seen me. They just heard, you
Was that
know,
in San Clemente back then?
it
Or
was, he just said it
or
was like SOP, somewhere
yeah.
off Pico was his
San Luis
warehouse.
Obispo or no, no.
No, it was down south. It's down in like
Is
Orange
down south.
County. Yeah.
Yeah, is in that area.
Yeah.
And so went out there, got stoked. We, of course, cruised around in a van as a team. And I was skating with like Jaime Diaz and a couple other guys, but just cruising around. And we stopped at this small contest in San Diego, and it wasn't that big. It was like I was like, oh, cool, man. I could probably, if I get my shit together, place well. And Jim Gray was there.
Oh.
And I was doing sow flips to fakie on this like 6 foot quarter, but like lofty. Like I was surprising myself, dude. Like, dude, I'm like floating for a while and just throwing my board under me and somehow landing every time.
Nice.
And then just going around and hitting other stuff, but that was like my main thing that I was super stoked on. And like front side 360s, over hips and stuff.
Yep.
I
I
was
remember you doing
Yeah.
those very, very
feeling
clearly.
like, yeah, like Lou, like Donger,
Mhm.
like he had brought
Yeah.
that to everybody's attention. And I was like, if you could do it like that, that's doing it,
Yeah.
and that's where Jim Gray was doing the Acme stuff. He was no longer doing Blockhead.
Yeah.
He was headlining the Acme wheels, Acme boards, and this was and he's like, well, I was lined up to go to finals. And he's like, so, you're out here from Chicago. I was like, yeah. He's like, you got a board sponsor? I was like, I'm actually out here with New School and I'm riding venture trucks and altered skates. And he's like, oh yeah, he knew Glenn. And he's like, well, if you need wheels, for the contest, hit me up. So another 1-800 number. Called him up. He sent me a wheels package to
Oh, they were
Chicago.
doing Formula One or something.
Formula
Yeah.
Ones,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
A1
Oh,
meets or
sick.
something like that. I don't know.
Huh.
Formula
Yeah.
Ones I is what I rode,
I think
Yeah.
the
it's
Formula
Formula
Ones.
One, yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
And
That's rad.
so it was really a good
A
time. It
bunch
was
of
like
these folks I know rode for New School. I didn't know you had a New School stint, Kyle.
short,
Todd, I know
yeah.
you got some boxes,
Yeah. I
and
got
then
some boxes.
Side said he got some stickers at least or whatever,
Oh,
right?
they were stringing them along a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Either way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
small world, New
it
School, all
was
three of you guys.
pretty. I in hindsight, I shouldn't have left BBC because they gave me that video part and
Well, I was going to ask you, where does that come into this whole thing? Because you had to go out
kind of right before,
right before you bounced.
yeah, like I didn't do I at that time, I was feeling kind of like
You're on top
my
of the
my
world.
head was yeah,
Yeah.
my head was
I got
swelling.
you. I
I
got
could
you.
barely fit through like the kitchen doorway, I had to shrink my head in to get in there, Like I
Yeah.
was feeling pretty cool and I was training like heavy, like I had like tricks in the bag and then I was cruising it back and forth from there and BBC, I'd ask them, like what do you guys have any, plans for me? Like, well, you got to get some coverage first. You got to get, we're making the video, you get a part in there. And our next pro is going to be Jim Gingery. And
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, Brad, I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, he's
he
really
was
cool.
ripping then.
He
Yeah.
was, he was so sick. And then Canton
Hmm.
Russell was after him. And
Ripping
then,
too. Yeah.
yeah, totally ripping. So he was getting ad space. And then next to that would be me. And I just thought I couldn't wait, for
Mm.
whatever reason. I was 16, and
Yeah. Anxious, ready
thought,
to. Yeah.
ready to do it up. I had, been putting in my
Mhm.
time. So I thought,
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, it's funny. Before you got on, me and Matt were trying to figure out the video you were in. All right. Do you remember the
yeah,
title of it?
it's like skaters from Uranus, something,
The
I
title
don't know.
the title of it is A Reason for Shackling My Footage of Full Rubbish Hocus Brigade Freaks from Uranus Part 1.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I have like a 20-second, if that, part at Primo and Diane Desidero's ramp.
Nice. That's
I
sick.
know
Yeah.
they weren't there, but like the essence of them was there, you know. You
That's
know,
so
it
cool.
was just so like colorful, you know,
Yeah.
everywhere, you know.
Yeah.
Neon colors every which way. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah,
What
definitely.
I really liked how like I don't think you I don't remember you ever saying that, getting to know you and spending a lot of time with you, like which isn't me that's maybe you, you know, you never would be like, hey, you know, I was in this old skate video,
Oh
BBC video.
no. I don't know. I
Yeah.
just is like it's hard for
I
me to
it
really
blew
go
my
on.
mind once I stumbled across that. I was like, no way, dude.
I
Kyle was
know.
in
I
a
was in high school at that
skate
time.
video back in the
This
Oh,
day.
is
that's
a high
rad.
school
That
video,
was
yeah.
so cool.
It was fun, man. I had a
Yeah.
really good time out there, and plus it was one of those times where skating was coming easy. You know, I had no injuries ever yet, you know,
Hmm.
like I had nothing to
Yeah.
be afraid of at all, except for not making a trick,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it was fun.
Yeah.
Um, so fast forwarding, you're on new school, you're
Yeah.
bouncing back and forth a little bit, going to finals. Yeah.
Yeah, well, see, I was hanging out at Rockford every as often as I could, you know. I was a senior in high school. And so the weekends I was up there after school, I was driving that hour up there from Algonquin and then training like till 10 o'clock at night and coming home, you know, and then going to school. I was doing that like, you know, for finals. And on one of the weekend trips, like Eric Murphy came up from Alva,
Hmm.
Big
Yeah.
Murph
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wait, he's a
with
Isn't he on
Chicago dude, right?
yeah, he's a
yeah.
Chicago guy.
He's the dude that board slid that super
Oh,
long
Yeah, yeah,
rail.
yeah, dude.
Yeah.
yes, the
Yeah.
infamous dude. That's like it was.
Hmm.
He was a big dude with a big
For
ollie, dude.
for back then, yeah.
Oh man, yeah, and
To this day, that's a gnarly thing
that's
to
a
slide.
gnarly
That's
trick, dude. It still
yeah,
holds
yeah.
its ground. And he
That
was
was like
riding for
fucking
Alva.
90 or some shit, or like 91. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he came up with a dude named Derek who owned like a skate shop in the city. Todd, I
Derek
think you know him.
Derek
You were
Miller
Yeah, yeah, Derek Miller.
was it Bad Boys Toys
Wow.
back then?
Bad Boys
Yeah,
Toys,
yeah,
and he
totally.
rode for
Hmm.
Dogtown.
Yes, I
Okay.
did he have
So
really long hair by
he
chance? Oh,
did,
no way.
dude. Yeah, like kind of black and
I
curly,
saw
you know.
I I met him when he was a sales director for DC and someone's like, "Oh yeah, Derek used to skate." I was like, "Okay, yeah, everyone
Yeah,
skated."
he did. Like he was like a
Good
shop
front
guy.
side airs, dude.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He was just like a cool guy, you know, and he was like he drove me to finals.
No way. That's
Yeah,
so
he was
funny.
just totally like wanted. He was kind of like a shop guy, like Glenn, that just wanted you, you know, had your best interest. Like, hey, you know, if you don't have a ride to finals, you know, I'm driving down there. I want to be down there, and he's going to watch, you know,
Huh.
and hang
Mhm.
out. You know, I mean, he had a shop. You know, he's gonna meet, you know,
Yeah, just be in the mix, right?
be in the mix.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, sure.
and
So where
so
were
I rode
finals at? Where were you guys going?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta.
So at that time, I was riding New School. Acme Wheels and Life's a Beach Clothing. And
Venture, right?
I think I got on Venture either down there or I had just got on Venture. Oh, probably when I went out to California, I met up with Greg Carroll. And so went down to finals. I was just like, okay, this is finally the contest that I've trained for. I've got support, you know, I'm
Have you
cruising
met a
down.
lot of the new school team at this point,
No,
or no?
not really
No.
at all. Just that Jamie, Jaime Diaz,
Is that like a little kid? Is he a little kid at this
he
point?
was back then, but he's
Yeah.
grown. Yeah, he's like
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
now. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
he
Back
was a
then,
smaller kid,
little
yeah.
guy.
And
Okay.
but he was just, you know, he was a ripper.
Hmm.
And he was just, you know, everybody just seemed to always be really nice. You know, there was not a
For
lot of
sure.
weird, you know, egos and stuff about anything. It
Hmm.
was just like if you shred, you were instantly friends, you know. So I felt pretty good
Hmm.
going to finals. You know, I was cruising down with a homie. You know, I wasn't, you know, 13 or 14 anymore. You know, had that head on my shoulder, so, you know, as far as the competition goes. You know, kind of so I thought, you know, until I got down there. And
And
once
what'd you see?
again, I saw Willie Santos, John Montesi, Chet,
Thomas?
Chet Thomas,
Yeah.
Jordan Richter, Colin McKay,
Wow.
Eric Costin.
Jesus Christ, man.
These were my group.
Yeah, straight up
Yeah.
future legends, right?
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
JT was down there with Poorhouse, but not in the competition.
Oh, no way.
Oh,
So at
really?
least I had a homie like from back home, like from St.
Hmm.
Louis. I saw him. I'm like, dude, no way. I'm like, how are you here?
Yeah.
He's like, I just cruised down with the Poorhouse team with John Schultes. I was like, are you in this? Are you in the finals? He's like, no, I'm just here chilling. I'm like, sick. And he had a brand new pair of skate highs in his hand, like, the Vans. And I was like, where'd you get those? And he's like, oh, I just talked to Beetle Rosecrans over there. I told him I was in the contest and he gave me a pair and said I could call him anytime.
Another
I
way,
was like,
another
you're not
800
in the,
number.
I was like, you're not in the contest. He's like, I just told him I was. So I was like, no way. So I went up to Beetle. I was like, Beetle, I have a shoe sponsor. I'm riding these Vision Streetwears. You got any room for any riders? He's like, you in the contest? I'm like, yeah. And he did the same thing for me. He's like, what size you wear? And I was like, eights or whatever. And he gave me a pair. I couldn't skate them. They were too fresh. But he gave me a 1-800 number. And that was my longest standing sponsorship.
Really?
Like I got
Fans.
shoes from him 2 to 3 years after I quit skating.
I
Like he just
remember
kept
that.
sending
Yeah, you
packages.
said that. I think I got some hand-me-downs from you or JT, like some half cabs, like down the line,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I didn't even ride.
or
I
full
broke my
cabs.
ankle.
Fuck.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
but yeah, he was like the best, like easiest like person to deal with. Like he never asked for a video, didn't care about anything, but like if you were having a good time and your shoes were good.
Oh, that's rad, man.
But
So,
yeah,
dude, the contest, what happens?
well, I was in over my head.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like there was some top-notch competitors. I was able to hold my run together, but it was nowhere near the caliber of, Willie Santos and, those next up and coming like some it won't legends,
Yeah.
you
Soon
know.
to be legends, sure.
Yeah, and then I would go inside and see the mini ramp heats invert, and like Chet Thomas was just that was when I knew that you could ollie 6 feet on a 4 foot mini ramp. I didn't think it was possible until I saw him whip up speed, off of something and then come in and alley oop to get his height. Instead of just doing a front side ollie, he would whip his hips up, and then that's how you would get that extra height. And I was like, I
Mhm.
saw that, and I was like, I'm doing that.
Mhm.
Once
Yeah.
I get home, I'm going to training. I'm not doing front side ollies. I'm doing front side alley oop, and that way I can really, really get that momentum up.
Mm.
And it
Yeah.
changed after that. Like quick tails started coming in, just shit like that, all from that contest. Like every contest you would go to and be outclassed, you upped your game by a mile.
Dude, that was like a
Mhm.
big way to learn like what new tricks look like. Like that's
It was.
I know
It
you
Mhm.
were
was
in the
going
mix
down.
when late shove-its and all that stuff were going down, but there
Right.
was a
Yeah.
progression that was happening that, yeah, you saw it on videos a few times a year, but contests were
Right.
happening more frequently,
More
it seemed.
direct. Yeah. You're
Exactly.
seeing
It
it
was
more.
definitely, man. And
Yeah.
and those people for me were Colin McKay and Chet Thomas. Like
Mhm.
Willie Santos and all those guys were rad on the street course, but it was a shitty street course. It was downhill. And it was just they didn't really step their game up. It was like a hip or two, a board
Yeah.
slide rail, a wedge with a curb on it. It was still pretty throwback. It wasn't like
I dug
ledges.
up some footage of you got your run. Some of it's out there, right, Kyle?
Oh,
Can
I'm
we
I'm sure I not by
find
anything that I
some of that?
somebody taped. Yeah, I don't know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
I think there's a little bit of you from it.
yeah,
I
I
could be
think I
wrong
have
though.
seen like I took a couple of runs. Maybe it was a practice run, but
Well, you
I
nollie off the hip, I'm pretty
maybe.
sure.
I
And
saw
like
that. I saw
the
that.
announcer doesn't know what to call it. Almost positive. Yeah,
But
because nollies were around, but I don't think everybody really knew what a nollie was, you know?
yeah, I was yeah,
Yeah.
that was part of my bag of tricks was front side nollies over those hips and stuff and
Hmm.
but
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I got
There's
like
some of that footage.
10th place maybe, and I
Not
felt
bad.
like really good about it
Yeah.
because those guys were gnarlier than I had ever seen, dude. Like I had never The gnarliest beyond besides that was Eric Costin
Hmm.
at Rockford at the districts that year showed up with Eddie Elgato.
They were at a Christian camp up in Wisconsin.
You got it.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
he just came in to qualify. He was
Yep.
from San Diego. And he came in and he had like yellow hair, which was like something because it was like a pineapple, you know,
Got
had
this like
on
full
some,
hydrogen peroxide hair color.
yeah, totally. And he showed up. Everybody knew Elguera, they're like, oh shit, he's H Street, you know, and he brought in Eric,
Unknown.
and
Yeah.
unknown at the time, and
Mhm.
he didn't even have his shoes tied. Didn't he had some half cabs on, like purple or something, weren't even laced up, weren't even tied, did a 540 ollie on the big quarter,
Mm.
and everybody, like the whole place went quiet. Like that was his like first, he like cruised around maybe, but nobody noticed. And then all of a sudden he did a
Just
540 ollie and everybody like just shut up and like was like, whoa, what the fuck just happened?
Wow.
And then he had the place to himself for a minute and did like backlip the handrail, which everybody was trying like board sides, front sides,
So
maybe a tail
he's putting on
side.
a demo at this point, yeah.
At this point, he's putting on
Yeah, yeah,
on a demo that like is like whoa, dude, this guy, and he was like the first guy I saw that could be in that Zen state when you skate. Like it looked like he had no hesitation, no stress. It was like his mind was telling his body what to do to the T. There was no like set up feet, like any shaking it off or any heavy breath. The shenanigans you see people go through to get a hell of a something like really rad,
Yep.
he had none of that. It was just like autopilot,
Just doing it, not even
just
thinking.
doing it,
Yeah,
not even
yeah,
thinking about
yeah.
it. And he was at finals.
Yeah. It's funny, his name has come up a few conversations regarding showing up in
Yeah.
Springfield, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
might have been a district or regional.
Another maybe a qualifier or regionals that year. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
think
it
I
was
ended
one
up
of
getting
them.
seventh at that one.
Oh, you went to that one as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Nice. Um,
And there was a couple other guys like that's when like Poorhouse was up there with their guys. They had a really rad dude that they were promoting and John Schultes. I'm trying to think of his name. He was a kind of a shorter dude.
Steve
Rob
Ortega,
Pierce.
Rob Pierce.
Rob Pierce, yeah.
Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
like
Was he
also
a
with
Midwesterner? This other the Rob Pierce
um
guy?
he was, but I think he may have been like Chicago or Peoria
Okay.
or something like that
Yeah,
because there
yeah,
were
yeah.
some rad guys out of Peoria,
Yeah,
Yeah.
like Dwayne Petrie and shit like that.
he was from
Yeah.
Louisiana.
Louisiana,
Louisiana?
yeah.
Was
Okay.
Nate Lyons from
Nate
Peoria?
Lyons,
Yeah,
yeah. He
yeah,
was
yeah,
Yeah,
around. He
maybe
was
that's what I'm
riding
thinking
like,
of.
yeah, those guys are all like
yeah.
really, really good. And they
Hmm.
were kind of low key, like Dark Horse, like, damn, I was just watching this dude, but that guy over there shredding just as hard, but
Yeah,
just really mellow.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it was, I don't know how common knowledge it was back in the day with Splash lore or whatever, but JT being on Poorhouse, I remember was a
Yeah, he
big
was
deal.
he was really
And
gnarly.
I thought it was a neat company
Mm-hmm.
because it was
I
kind
did
of like
too.
a H Street spin-offy, like,
Yeah,
oh,
John
this could be
Schultes.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
then you've got somebody from the hometown on it, so of course it's like, holy shit.
yeah, yeah.
Was rooting for it for
I
sure.
remember many conversations with JT waiting for my box from John Schultes from Powhouse.
Oh,
Yeah.
how?
And then
Yeah.
so I always thought you were on Poorhouse as well. You never were on
No,
Poorhouse? Oh,
never was.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much from that NSA finals, went back home to Chicago with Derek, and I was feeling pretty hyped up, and he was hyped up, and he was getting like B team from Dogtown.
Okay, I see how this is going. Yeah.
Yep, and so he called. He was in conversation with Red Dog all the time. He had a shop, and Red Dog's wanting to know what's going on at finals, who's coming up, and Derek's like, yeah, man, my buddy Kyle, he's got sponsors, but he's looking to turn pro or whatever can be closest to it or whatever, and he's like, well, cool, send him out. So he sent a ticket for me to come out there.
Oh, really? Out to San Francisco.
Yeah, yeah. And went there, and Bernadette, his wife, picked me up at the like SF airport. I don't know. It may I think she picked me up at LAX.
Yeah.
Wait,
And
so Dogtown starts in
Dogtown might have been in, yeah, I can't picture where they would have been in time, right?
no, no, they were definitely in San Francisco. I'm just trying to understand
Yeah,
like
the deluxe at that point.
Red Dog
Sorry.
migrated up from LA to San Francisco, basically,
yeah, yeah, for a little bit.
for a little bit. Okay.
Not long, because when Glenn visited, just a couple years ago, Glenn called me up on FaceTime with Red Dog, and neither one of us can really remember any crucial details. But once I said, yeah, I was in SF down in the lower level apartment, where a lot of his amateurs hung out before, they got on their own. Like, like a little, team spot.
Throw
It's
out the
just a
sleeping
little
Yeah, the
bag,
room.
anyone
hostel,
can
the
crash.
Dogtown
Exactly, anybody
hostel.
Yeah.
can crash. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
and once I said that, I was in SF. He's like, "Oh fuck, that was like early '90s." I was like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Fuck." I was like, "Yeah." His son Teague was like a baby. I'm sure that kid's probably got a family by now.
Yeah.
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 And I'm not sure that he's still married. I don't know.
Yeah.
They like Glenn called me. I was like right in the middle of something. It was just like, "Hey, bud, what's up? We got
That's
Red
funny.
Dog here." I'm like, "Oh fuck, what's up?" But yeah, so he's like, come on out, and so I did. Bernadette picked me up at the airport, and I was fired up, because he was like, I got a contract, let's see if you got what it takes, you know, and
Wait, did
I'm
you
like,
already hand in your papers to New School? Like, sorry
pretty much
guys.
called him on my way.
Oh.
I mean, I was, like those are
It's
the things where it's like if I would have had somebody like as a mentor, kind of how kids do now, somebody to be like a liaison to say, hey, these are like jobs, you
yeah,
should, maybe.
but Dogtown was probably a step up. No offense, John Vallie and New School,
I
but
thought so
Well,
too. They
I
were
would have
much
thought
more.
at that time period that Dogtown would be cooler.
but
That's what I thought
I mean,
too.
as
You
well
know,
too, the skate industry is young and people are changing sponsors month to
all the
month.
mhm,
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Like,
yeah,
didn't really feel like that
yeah.
I was like being a bad guy or anything. I was just flying by the seat of my pants. I was looking
yeah,
for the contract.
and you've got an opportunity.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I had an
yeah.
opportunity, and I
Mhm.
was fresh off finals, and that's what the next step was. If you made it through finals and placed, enough to make it, onto the roster, then, top five, you were definitely turning pro. But from there, it was like, like, yeah, well, maybe, let me see you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So went out there, and he was
And
putting on Wade Spire, John Cardiel, Mike Ko, Wingding.
yep.
And then he had a place possibly, for me. Like these are his next guys,
And this is like
So
1992 when he won?
91, like
Okay.
it
Probably
was the
91,
day I
right?
graduated high school that I left Chicago to
Oh,
go
you
into
were
Delta.
out,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, I was
Because
like,
all
this
those
is my
dudes,
timing.
yeah,
I'm like,
all
this
those
is how
dudes
it's
are in that
happening.
video that comes out,
The
the
K9's video.
Dogtown video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I went out there, and he took me to Embarcadero.
I was getting
No
ready to ask,
way.
was that going at that point?
Yes, it was
Okay.
heavy.
Okay.
And I
Wow,
got
yeah.
there and I got cold feet. Dude, Mike Carroll was thrashing, Henry Sanchez,
I
just
bet.
all
Yeah.
those local guys, and I'm like a fish out of water, dude. I've been training in parks.
Yeah, it's
You
so
know,
funny.
I'm
You were like street guy, now you're transition guy, now you're getting
now
thrown into
now I'm thrown
Embarcadero.
right into the thick of it. SF
Skate this
Embarcadero.
rectangle.
Yeah.
Skate this
On these
rectangle and
bricks.
thrash because this is how you turn pro.
Yeah,
And
it's
I'm
not.
like, fuck, I got ledge tricks, but it's like, indoors.
Yeah.
I had
That,
nose blunt slides and back tails and
yeah.
That
stuff, but it was
nice
like on
slick
on
and rotation
controlled
station.
environment. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I was just blown out. Like I don't know what to do. So I jump up on the Gonzali. I was like, this is what I got to do. So I fucking did a run start, jumped and ollied out to it and almost made it, but kind of wrecked myself.
Oh shit.
So I got kind of a pass, like I did. They're like, dude, you tried that. That was rad. And kind of putzed around a little bit, but I did like land primo and kind of fucked my feet up, and I was just like, fuck, dude. But like I had a little bit of street cred because I at least tried that. And
Yeah.
so like I didn't totally blow it, went to the factory, looked at stuff and they're like, here's our standard contract. And it was like for a meager amount of money, and it was kind of like just fill in your name and get a signature. And then I was out there for a few days, and he's like, keep this. And I was like, yeah, I'd like to have my mom look it over and stuff like that. And so he's like, yeah, all good. The boys are going down to the Powell warehouse tomorrow, so why don't you, hook up with them and ride Santa Barbara. Team manager's going down there to give a chance to check you out
Who
on it.
else is going down there? Who's in the crew?
Wade Spire,
Oh wow.
John Cardiel, and I think Mike Ko, my Wingding.
Jesus.
And
Damn.
I know, here I am in the thick of it again. And then the team manager, I forget his name, but he was a pool skater. He was good.
Was
Everybody.
it Dave something?
It may have
Dave,
been. I just don't
Dave
Dave,
know.
Rule? Not Dave Rule. No.
It
no,
could have
no.
been, but
In
so we
that
were,
Dogtown video, there's this really amazing pool
Yeah,
part. Dave something.
Royce Nelson.
yeah,
Nah, another
No?
it was
dude.
probably
Another dude.
Dave.
No, Dave.
Dave
Dave, he had
something. I
like
can't
sandy
remember.
blonde hair. Um,
Yeah.
everybody was really nice.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're riding down to Santa Barbara. And Wade Spires got his big headphones on, just listening to probably some speed metal of some kind. John Cardiel's got like, Copenhagen dip. And I'm like paranoid from any type of partying from my NSA extravaganza where I was high for 3 days.
Kind of grabs you by the boo boo, don't
I was totally, clean cut, fucking Midwest. I'm here for the like, yay, like wow, just
Put
totally
me in,
starstruck.
coach.
Yeah, put me in, like totally starstruck with everywhere I'm going, just to be where I'm at. I'm like, oh wow, this is nuts. So we get down, they're partying the whole way, like Jack Daniels, smoking tons of weed. I think they're tripping shrooms. They were asking me if I wanted anything. I'm like, nope, nope, nope. And they're just like, what is the deal with this dork? Like, why is he even with us? Like, I'm traveling with like Motley Crue and I'm coming in. And so we get down there and there's tons of kids. Like, the place is mobbed. It's the Powell Warehouse. It's like a Saturday and pros are coming, you
Is it
know,
for a contest or do you just
just
go
for a
to skate
demo.
it?
Oh,
Yeah,
you guys are
just,
doing a demo.
yeah.
Oh shit. I thought you guys were just going to skate.
Well, I kind of thought that, but once we got there, it was a full on, like they cleared out.
Oh fuck.
And I thought this was my time to shine. I was like, I've been training skate park for years now, like,
And
and
you
we're
got
going to
these
the
dudes that have been on a party mission for 3 hours in the van.
yeah, and I'm stone cold sober. I was like, this is my finally my fucking shot. I was like, everything is lining up. I got a good night's sleep. These guys are partied. They're just gonna get out and fall out of the van and just sign autographs. And I had never heard of John Cardiel. I don't think anybody really had at that time. And so
Mhm.
it's probably in 1990 because he got like Skater of the Year like a couple years later,
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe a
Yeah.
year later.
Yeah,
And
right.
so we get out and I'm like, walking in, like feeling, pretty pepped up, like, man, I can't wait to fucking thrash. I go right up to like they had a spine, it's like a 6'7", I don't
Yeah,
know. It
that
was a
mini ramp
huge,
spine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I get up onto that deck. I'm just gonna drop in and just go to town, and I'm up there with Wade. Wade's got his headphones on. He's got big old dip in his mouth, like straight out of the fucking forest, like country, dirt bikes and stuff. Wade's fire, dude.
They're kind of
And
rednecks, man.
yeah, kind of redneck, California style, laid back, chill,
Mhm.
just there. And so, of course, I'm not gonna go first, Wade Spire's on deck. And I thought I gotta see this. This guy's gonna drop in. He's probably done at least 6 shots. I know he's tripping on shrooms and smoked a ton of weed. And he dropped in and blew my fucking mind, dude. Like he aired over the spine as high as I've ever seen in my life and like transferred that way. And then like was like crouched down and went to the other side and did the biggest front side nose bone I'd ever seen in my life. And then hit his tail and I thought a gunshot went off. So I'm like, holy shit. So then he did like he come over the spine again with like a big like Madonna tail slap and did like a alley-oop backside body jar and nailed his tail again. Like I thought he broke the fucking ramp, dude. Like it was so loud and so gnarly that I was blown away. I was like, I can't skate. I can't fucking follow this guy. There's like a ton of people watching this. And like I went down to the street course and fucking John Cardiel was down there, dude. And he did like I think he did like a 360 ollie with a body varial or something on the street course. And I'm like, holy shit. So then I went over by Mike Ko because he was just a street guy, he was rad in Embarcadero, but like he was doing like a clinic on flat ground. Like he was doing first catch kick flips I had ever seen. He was kick flipping, it was coming right up to his feet. It wasn't like a mob kick flip where you land on it, you know. It was
Yep.
sucked up to his feet and he was coming down like 2 feet in the air. And I'm just like, what the fuck? So I did end up skating. I got my nerves together and actually skated really well. Like I was proud of myself. I was like, man, I overcame those gnarly nerves with the shaky knee. I had to get my sea legs. And I ended up doing like a late shove it over the whole pyramid, like just going for broke.
Damn. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I went up the huge vert wall as high as I could possibly handle without turning my stomach like roller coaster style, and just got all the speed I could ever need, and just went bonkers like as high as far as I could, and then late shove it and landed it, and like everybody was just like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, "I can't believe I did that." And then did my normal shit, sow flips and stuff like that, and Benihanas and
Did
but
were you guys being filmed? Like were you with a
I haven't.
filmer with Dogtown at the
No,
time?
nobody like was documenting anything really ever. It seemed like,
Hmm.
it was like the big
Yeah.
Super 8 cam, if you had one or a big beta, shoulder device. But that was like it felt, I got a good report card when we went back and
Oh,
talked to
nice.
Red Dog. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And but it was still kind
He's got that real deep voice. Heard you were ripping, dude. Right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Dubs. Everybody was Dubs.
Oh, everyone's dubs.
Yeah, yeah. Heard you're ripping Dubs. I'm like, yeah, I got a couple of things. I guess, yeah, right on, right on. And but he was still kind of like, like I need to see more of you. I've got kind of
Yeah.
yeah. I went to Embarcadero. You went kind of gnarly over the Gons thing, but you got kind of wrecked. But then you did rad down there, and let's just see where it goes. I'm like, I was totally cool with that at that point. Those pro ambitions, I knew that I was like, you know what, I need some more training. I need to, get my hand in the bag with some vert.
Yeah.
After I saw Wade control that mini ramp like he
Well,
did.
dude, you're describing the mini ramp stuff, and there's some pretty well documented footage of him skating that specific ramp after the fact. And like, dude,
Uh-huh.
it is fucking incredible. Like, it is literally
Oh,
to this day stands the test of time. Like, it's incredible.
It was mind blowing, dude,
Yeah.
because he was not only was it his tricks, but his mental state. There, like, I don't know if he's just got like some kind of on off button for clarity. But like I asked him, I'm like, what are you listening to? And he had like Anthrax or Megadeth or something going
Mhm.
like so loud that like I don't even see how anybody can even function with that going on. But he was just it was so intense, dude. I hadn't seen anything like that ever.
Yeah.
Like that was like really like I saw, Chet Thomas and Colin McKay, but they were established, that's what you expected, when you saw them. But Wade, he was kind of like a low key, really gnarly pro for a while. It was like one of those
yeah.
people didn't get the right coverage. Like
Yeah.
he
Well,
went to Powell afterwards, and it was kind of
yeah.
too gnarly
I
for
don't
Powell.
I don't want to fast forward too much, but did you then meet him when he would come? I know he did at least one demo with Glenn.
Did a few demos. Yeah.
Did you
Yeah,
happen to run into him and like
I
catch up with
didn't.
him at all?
No, I
Because you were
didn't.
definitely around those times. You were definitely
I don't.
skating again and showing up with
Um,
like post showing up with the Beamer, just the
Probably.
Beamer.
Yeah, I
So
think I was just kind of like I broke my ankle like right after that.
Okay.
In
and was
SF,
so like over it,
in SF or
But
back.
back then, yeah, like
No, when I
91-ish
was
or
on,
whatever.
I came home and then stopped in Springfield
Mm.
with Todd Fuller to skate skank skates.
Oh
Oh
shit.
man, yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Like he picked me up and he's like, "Hey man, some people want to hang out with you at Skank Skates, and like all right, let's do it." So we went there and we were skating like after hours, and I totally rolled my ankle for the first time, and I was just like pretty much kind of like feeling like the down pressure of skating with so many rad dudes and not feeling like that
Yeah.
I'm ready to go yet, even though I thought I was wholeheartedly,
That
Midwesterner,
that
and then you get
California
out
can be
there.
eye-opening.
It,
Yeah.
it was, it was total eye-opening experience for me because I
Hmm.
had been used to being able to show up places and be that guy,
Hmm.
often, and then go out there and be nowhere near something,
Yeah,
that
you
you
got a whole
thought,
nother
a whole
couple
nother
steps to
level. It was a
go.
whole nother level
Yeah.
Yeah.
that I was opened up to. And I was like, at that time thinking, I don't know if I have the patience for this because, I've been fighting tooth and nail to get
Yeah.
to what I have
The
now,
goal
as far
line
as
just keeps moving.
it
Yeah.
just kept moving. And
Yeah.
then I had
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
injury, and I'm like,
Wait, did
pretty
Todd
much,
pick you up at the airport off this SF trip straight to Skank? Is it like that?
yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Like I had nothing to do. It was like I left Chicago like I was never going to come back.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
But those that first ankle bender, man,
Yeah,
can
that's
just
a
it'll
eye opener, dude.
mentally recheck.
the
You're like,
piano
oh,
strings,
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
you
Yes,
know,
torn ligaments and the whole bit.
oh,
Yeah,
I
dude.
was so like bummed and
Yeah.
um and was kind of pretty discouraged at the whole process that I was after. I had lost the fun of it, of just that pure you can go out and have fun with your buddies and anybody at any given time is like a hometown hero.
Yeah.
Like when we were skating, the three of us, at any time you would do a crooked over there at Elm all the way across that thing, and everybody's like, "Holy shit, dude, who is that guy?" And then that creates a stoke, and then it could be anybody at any moment in time. And I had really missed that. I had seen so many guys that were just like expected to be rad, and then were even better than you thought they would be.
Yeah.
Because
Mm.
last time you saw them was like a video part that was 2 years old.
Sure.
And
Sure.
Right,
you're like,
right.
"Oh my God."
Wait, this is
I'm
Yeah, yeah.
actually starting to make sense. So, does this coincide with you moving back to St. Louis?
Yep, it does. Yeah, I
Okay.
moved I moved home. I broke my ankle and moved home with my dad in Alton.
Wait, what year did you
Oh,
move back
okay.
to St. Louis area then?
It was probably like 91 to 92-ish I moved back.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I still got kind of back into skating,
Yeah.
but I didn't have that fire that
Yeah.
I had. I was kind of just, I still was getting vans. I was getting like Acme wheels and boards at that point. I wasn't getting Dogtown boards. He went out of business.
So that you mentioned this to me in the past. What exactly happened with that? Kind of
I
an
don't
interesting.
know.
I thought you basically were at home reading the contract.
Yeah, yeah, I took that home and I showed it to my mom and I was just like, like I don't know what's gonna come of this. And then like before I knew it, or I'm not, there's like a gap in time there, but nothing came of it, like he was always kind of like getting some stuff together, and then I guess he went out of business or something.
Yeah.
And I was getting boards from Jim Gray, from Acme.
Yep.
But he was like, send me that video part. He's like, I'm sure you're ripping. Last time I saw you, you were doing it, but I need, we want to get a video together. It's like a Channel One video.
Oh, this is
And I
Jim
was,
Gray saying this.
yeah. And I was shuffling around like, oh, fuck. Now I've, put all my eggs in this basket of Dogtown and didn't show up like I should have. And now I'm like, oh fuck, and I didn't think I could call John Fowley or BBC and be like, hey man,
I'm
because I
back.
didn't, I didn't put in my 2 weeks notice, and but I was kind of just too humble or too, full of myself to backtrack. It
Yeah.
wasn't, this was a humbling experience. And, it kind of took that for me to say, you know what, I wanted to be a big deal, but I've been humbled and I'm not. I just want to get back to skating and have fun.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I did where I met up with you guys again and
Mhm.
just started skating for fun again and never really got competitive towards it after that. I
Yeah.
thought I saw my end, even though it was such a short amount of time and people skated and we've been skating up until in our 50s.
Yeah.
I just had no
Mhm.
idea we had that type of longevity. I
Yep.
thought, okay, I'm 20 now. There's no way. There's that window's over.
Dude, that
You
was
know,
the
Yeah.
time period though. 21, 22 is like,
it was over.
oh man, you're
Yeah,
done. You're
you're
done.
done. You're
Yeah.
done. Yeah,
You
exactly. And
didn't
I already had a
have a
broken
lot of
ankle.
examples
Yeah.
around
Yeah,
to say like, oh, you can do it when you're 35.
there was
Yeah.
nothing.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
nothing like
mean,
that.
I think Tony Hawk was even retired in
Yeah.
91,
Right. Yeah.
92.
He was,
Dude.
he's
Like
like, yeah.
shit got pretty bad.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
skating took
Big change.
a big downsweep.
So when
Hmm.
me and Brad Johnson start bumming around with you guys, you're living in North County. You are getting boards from Acme. You're still getting shoes from Vans. I think you were getting some
Yeah,
Venture
yeah,
stuff.
and venture trucks,
But
yeah.
like we were skating, we were skating, but you weren't skating. I mean,
Yeah.
no, no,
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like trying to
exactly.
be competitive. I
You
was just trying to skate
to get out for a few
and
hours maybe, and that's that, right?
that was that. Yeah, I was just hoping not to be like an embarrassment of what you probably heard I was. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Kyle's supposed to be really good, he did this or that and I was just hoping to maybe, not be a disappointment at that
Yeah.
point.
But at that
Like
point too, you're probably catching up on some teenage years that you didn't have.
that's so what I was doing, man. Like
Yeah.
I was, rooting down with my friends that I left. I ended up
You guys are pounding 40s and having fun,
yeah,
right?
dude,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
having fun, like
Yeah, yeah.
partying, like all the stuff I missed in high school. Yeah, we were hanging out, drinking beer, smoking weed
Yeah.
and going to movies, hanging out and
Yeah.
going to parties, just doing
This is
that.
Alton again, you're saying?
No, we were
Back in Alton?
I was back in St. Louis, and that's where my
You're back in
friend Sean had that house,
North
that his
County.
parents
Yeah.
left him,
Did you
and
ever
they had a
come around
big,
there, Matt? Like skating on the Rock Road back
N-
then?
No,
No?
it's interesting to know, like, I did a lot of hanging around like Skates Plus, but that
Yeah.
was more
yeah,
through like Dan George, who rode for them for a little bit. But like I didn't skate I grew up in Maryland Heights, really
5 miles
adjacent to
away.
all that,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
And I didn't venture up north too much. It's interesting.
But
Like
that was the
I
thing,
would
like
skate
there
like
was,
Pattonville and
yeah,
stuff, but that was about as far north. Or like there were those banks off like 270 at a church that you could see.
yeah,
That
those
was
hips
like
back
just because it
there,
was so visible, like
yeah.
we knew about to go
Oh,
there.
those little banks, yeah, by that soccer field.
Oh yeah, by
Yeah, they're
Bigfoot.
still there, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
just all
Yeah, it's like
chunked
St.
up and
Michael's or
stuff.
something like
Yeah,
that.
Yeah,
but they were
yeah.
way better back then.
They
Like
were way
launch
better.
over the
It was pretty
trash
fun.
can stuff
Yeah, that
and
was fun. I like
yeah.
skating spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, my North County stuff when I was a kid wasn't too deep.
Yeah.
I
And I
think
didn't,
that,
yeah, I didn't know like about that ramp. So,
yeah, it was fun. That was like a hangout spot slash.
but fucking 8 feet, I don't think I would have been fucking with that thing anyway. Like,
No.
I had,
Dude,
yeah,
Matt, I'll tell you, the fucking
it
house
was
was
eight.
wild, dude.
Yeah, yeah. I just think in skating in general, an 8 foot ramp.
Dude, we'd
Yeah,
roll up
in
and
my
grab
young days,
Kyle
I
and
would have tried. And
get the
yeah,
hell out of there, dude. It wasn't like that.
yeah, yeah.
No,
Okay,
it was
yeah.
that was what it was. It was a pretty nutso spot,
Yeah,
man.
for sure.
So you say, I was thinking North County Connect. Oh, you want to take a break, Todd?
No, no,
Uh,
go, go, go.
okay. Um, so you Jason did like Joel Burke, you said
Oh
Achmeyer, and
man, yeah. That I rode with Joel pretty often, like
mhm.
before and after, um, you know, all that stuff. All the sponsorships before and we
Hmm.
rode together just as Team Onion doing those demos back in the 80s. And I think he got like a flow from H Street
Oh, sick.
going
No,
for
I
a
think a
little
lot of
while.
those dudes were. I think Skates
Yeah.
Plus had like
Yeah, like
they
a
were
B
hooking up a lot
team.
of
They
people
were.
with the H Street thing because like Pat
Yeah.
Splat and
Yeah.
Joel, I think
Yeah.
even Achmeyer was getting
Yeah.
Well,
some H
those
Street flow.
guys
So,
Like,
eventually got boards from One More, Ken Parks' company, and Fat
oh,
Clown
really?
Clothing. I remember
oh,
that
Okay,
okay.
because I
Yeah,
that's
remember,
rad.
vaguely.
yeah, because I remember
Yeah.
those were the days when you guys would be bumming. You guys were fun. Like you,
Oh, we had a blast.
Joel and
Yeah.
Chris and fucking
Yeah.
you guys
Oh
were
man,
just
We would
beating
love
each
to
other
we would
up.
just
meet up
we'd
at
beat
skate
each other
spots
up
and
all the
skate.
time. We always had like fun things to do, like a
Yes.
unicycle in the truck
Yes.
or
What about
something. You know,
AJ Miller? Was he
AJ was
around?
Oh
really
yeah.
rad too.
Yeah,
He
Yeah,
yeah.
was more like my age. I think
yeah,
he's even a year or two younger than us, Todd. But
yeah.
Yeah.
He got good really fast,
hmm
and like it was
we
like, wow, this is
connected from our age, being our age, and
yeah,
realizing we lived pretty close. And it's interesting. I would just go to his house and skate, but I don't, back to the spots, I don't remember.
yeah.
Because I would
We
hook up with AJ when we were kids. Like my mom
yeah.
would drop one off, that type of
Yeah,
stuff,
Oh wow.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, he was like next generation, and I was like, wow, these guys are gonna rip.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was
he
ripping.
was stoking me out, like
Yeah,
fucking always ripping, man.
definitely.
Um,
Especially today's world.
yeah, for sure.
I'm telling you.
But you got out of skating. You just got burned out on it more or less, or just
Well,
got
I
into something else.
did. I got burnt out on it, and I ended up out of hanging out with my buddies, trying to feel that like hometown connection,
Yep.
and um ended up dating my high school girlfriend,
Yep.
and and then my first daughter was born before I knew it.
Yep.
And then it was just like, wow, okay, I'm 20 and maybe just about 21.
Still
And it's
young.
like, okay, I got to get serious. This is a life I'm responsible for.
Yep.
So I was no longer about, running around with the buddies and, trying to do this or that, for street cred or, trying to, anything.
You
I
got
was
to
like,
start
I
providing, right?
I got to
Figure out
start
some.
providing.
Yeah,
And
sure.
that's when I really started getting a work ethic, like I had to start painting. I was painting houses and, just doing, whatever I could of a full-time job that carried benefits. And that's pretty much where I stayed, as far as that mindset till, a good 5 years, probably 25, 26. I was like,
Yep.
I missed that adrenaline buzz, that achievement buzz, of going out and doing something. I was like, but I don't want to go back to skating. I want to do this. And I started, well, before that, I was still missing the adrenaline buzz. And I got into kickboxing when I
Holy,
was like 21 or 22
no way.
and took on some fights and got pretty good at it. But, since I didn't do it, at a young age, my hips weren't like doing the splits loose. I could do my kicks, but it didn't come as easy as boxing
Is that
did.
what's needed to kind of
You,
have leverage or something? Is it like that?
yeah, kind of, and that flashy stuff, I just was felt kind of limited that, I was able to, get stretched out to do my head kicks, but I wasn't like Van Damme was like, like something at that time. I'm like, dude,
Sitting
that's how
on
to do
two
it.
chairs with your legs
Yeah,
apart. Yeah.
even though he was a fake fighter, but it was like, just as Rocky is, it's like, dude, this is how I'm getting fired up,
Yeah.
watching Jackie Chan shit and stuff. But I got into that and then, had some fights and realized that, there was really no longevity there. So I was like, where is there and what do I like to do? I was like, I like to feel like I can entertain, but not, and so I started, wanting to be a stuntman.
That's right. Yeah.
So I was like, I could be in the spotlight, but I don't have to actually be in the spotlight. I can get that, jump from buildings or cars or downstairs and focus like it was skating or something like it. But, it's a new road.
Yeah. How
So I
does one
started
go about doing that? Like, where do you even
well, that's
start?
the thing. Like, where do you start? Like, I didn't have any inspiration or anything to go by. So, like, I went to Six Flags. I'm like, hey, I want to be in the stunt show because they had like a Robin Hood show and they
No
had
way.
other
Really?
shit like that. Yeah. So I went there and auditioned, and he's like, well, I took a skateboard with me. I did some tricks off the stage, did like some backhand springs and shit like that, some big karate kicks, and stuff. That's why I needed those flashy kicks, like they looked cool. So I
Uh,
was able to kind of do them kind of, but not, you could tell, I was more of a fighter than I was an on-screen martial artist.
Sure.
And so he's like, let me talk to you. So he talked to me after the audition, and he's like, I like what's going on, but you need more training for the theater. You might want to take up some broadsword classes and maybe look into this stunt school that I went through that, could probably help you out a lot. And he was like a stunt man for like Law and Order and shit like that, Chicago Hope and stuff
Cool.
like that.
Huh.
But he was also the team coordinator for those Six Flags shows.
Mhm.
So I'm like, all right, I took that as a win. He singled me out, and said, this is what you need to do and come back next year.
Yeah.
So I did. I took tumbling classes at the gymnastics place. I got into that stunt training.
Yeah. Was that in St. Louis? They were offering that?
And no, it was actually out in Washington State. It was Dave Boucher's stunt school.
No way.
So it was like a 2 week course. You go there and you do all kinds of
Did
shit.
you
You do
go out
high
for it?
Yeah, I went out, paid, it was like $1,200, for a few days. And then you had a certificate saying that you're certified of doing, whatever, you can go there for auto, cars. I went for martial arts and stage training. They train you how to do, sword fight, broadsword, like Conan swords and shit,
Yeah.
that big old swords like that, tumbling. And then I also was in like a gymnastics and practicing, getting punched in the face and,
No.
all that stuff, those spins and stuff, kind of like parkour is now, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then auditioned for this local TV show
I
on
saw that. So that was through the network that
the DH
Double
Double
Helix.
Helix.
Yeah,
Double
that
Helix, yeah.
ultimately is KDHX is under that
Hey,
umbrella or
exactly,
whatever they're doing
exactly.
now. But they had cable
Yep.
access before the station or at the same time, I think.
At the same time, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was on TV, they ran it all the time because it was like a kind of like an ethnic show.
Yeah. Did you ever see
But
that, Matt? Ever seen those clips?
There's that reel that's out on YouTube. Does that have some of it? That like you do some
no,
stunts or
no.
No, he's like full like he's got like a girl like what's up? Like
Yeah, 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 yeah. I was kind of like a
yeah,
street
it's ringing
thug.
yeah,
bells.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I had a on-stage romance.
Yes.
Yep. But the thing is I got to write all my own stunts. So
Oh.
I was a cheesy actor on there that had to read lines that Guy Paul wrote. Guy Paul was the director. But as long as I did his lines, I could write in like fight scenes and
No
did
way.
all kinds of like I fell out of cars. I jumped downstairs, got shot down. I didn't jump. I fell downstairs. But also in between takes, I would do shit around there like hardcore parkour, like jump
Yeah.
down shit, and film it on the side on my own, and for my
Dude,
own
is
stunt
that
reels.
stuff floating around on YouTube as far as you know, or what?
I have a stunt reel, my actor tape, and there's some stuff on there
Is
from
it
there,
a
but
physical tape? Is it like that?
it's on YouTube.
Oh, it is. Okay,
Yeah,
sick.
I feel like
Yeah, and I
I
like jump
dug up
out
some
like
of that. Yeah.
I stage like in this old flat in U City. I jump out of a window,
No
land
Yeah.
on this
fucking
car,
way.
do like a week like front flip off and introduce myself as a stuntman.
I
And
put
I'm
that
like a
in your
baby.
little
Yeah,
when I made
for
a video of your
sure.
mistress board. I put that jump out of the window in the
Oh,
video
did
edit,
you? Did you?
and then
But
you do so
it's
when you started bringing up the stunt stuff, it automatically my brain goes to parkour because it seems like
that's
it's what it is
basically what I
today.
was doing
There's
before
that one jump
parkour.
you do where you jump to a
A
pole down
pole.
a
That's a
staircase
double
and you
helix.
spin a few
It spin around.
times.
Yeah, that was gnarly.
That's gnarly. It's a
That was in
gnarly one.
between takes whenever I was getting shot for
Yeah.
that TV show.
Hmm.
And that was like, okay. I had another camera guy there from 88 millimeters production that did action movies. He still makes them, but I was wanting to be like a lead actor in his next thing. So I was like, hey, come down to the TV show. I'm going to do some stunts along with doing the episode for the show. And
Yeah.
he's like, all right, so he brought his crew out, and that's how I got that footage. But it's really cheesy. I mean, to talk about it, it sounds like it's pretty cool, but really, it was just really
Dude, the stunt
no
stuff's
budget.
amazing because there's kind of not a lot of training, right? You just go for it.
You
Or am
just
I
go for it.
right?
Yeah,
I mean, you got to start
yeah,
somewhere, so you just kind of go for it. Yeah, you can fine tune things along the way, I would
right,
imagine, but
right.
Yeah,
yeah,
you can't really practice jumping out to a pole
right.
No,
on
that was a
on a
one-off. No, that
staircase.
was gnarly. I almost wrecked myself there. My hands were sweaty, and that pole was like an inch and a quarter, maybe diameter. It was really just a support for the staircase, but you had to jump over the rail and grab it, and it was, second story in the air, and it was concrete floor, and I had to spin around at flagpole style to get back on the stairs. And when I jumped out to it, I didn't really calculate my body weight and that inertia swinging around with your legs swinging. I thought I could stay tight to it, but my legs swung out and I got heavier, and I'm like, oh, fuck. So I had
Yeah.
to kind of grab it with my elbow on that last turn to get down the stairs. And I was thankful once I got back onto that stairs because that's all I needed was that shit because it was high in concrete, and it
Yeah.
was in the middle of a take where I was getting shot by like a mobster where I had to fall down the stairs backwards.
No way.
I
Jesus, man.
know. Yeah.
As you're doing all that
Got the
though,
clip.
well, you start skating again. Yes, you kind of start popping
Yeah.
back up around
Yeah, yeah,
that
I
side.
did. I've been skating off and on my
Yeah.
it's something that never leaves. You
Yeah.
know that.
Yep.
You're out there too.
Yep.
Ever since that one inspiration, it's like forever with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I ended up realizing that really wasn't going to go anywhere from St. Louis, and I had two young kids,
Yep.
and it was just like, that's not going to happen. I was getting calls, but none of them were enough to make, a living.
Yep.
A couple $100 here and there for this. And really, if you went to the hospital, it'd be several thousand.
Total risk versus reward doesn't equal.
No.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
next year I made like the Robin Hood show for Six Flags, and that was a contract, but again, I still had to have a day job.
So you
You
did that.
know,
You did do
I
that.
did.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. I auditioned for that the next year. He remembered me and I told him I was coming. He's like, good, looking forward to seeing you, and my resume had filled in quite a bit, of being because that was my first step. And now it's been a year and I had been hitting it hard and heavy, through auditioning and getting small roles and got there. And immediately we did a high fall tryout, so he took a scaffold, put it like 25 feet in the air or something like that. It was on the stage,
Oh,
and
he's
then there
just
was
trying to weed everybody out straight
he,
away.
he
Yeah.
and he did quick. He had a big airbag, that you would fall into, and the idea was that you come up there, and that was the start of the audition. You fell off like a dead guy, like you had been stabbed in the back or shot. You didn't like jump off. You just, melted off, and then did a half flip and landed on your back and exhale your air. And he explains like this isn't a make or break, but this is part of the show. You have to fall off the Robin Hood show. You will be getting shot with arrows and you will fall out of sight from the stage. Because they had like a faux, like a mock-up facade
Full
of the
Nottingham
Robin Hood.
looking
Yeah,
thing. Yeah,
Nottingham,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. And then it was like a backstage, and you'd come out of doors and and then you get punched out. And so I did that, went up there, and I'm like, I'm down for it. I'm like, I'm going first, and I wanted to make the show. And so he brings me up there, and he demonstrates what he wants to see.
Oh,
You
that
know,
dude can do it too.
oh fuck yeah, he's a stuntman, like
Oh,
legit.
wow.
He's
Wow.
just like a team, recruiter for this, national show. Like Robin Hood went all over. He was just stopping in St. Louis to, build a team, and then
Wow.
the coordinators came in and told us what to do, and he disappeared. But he came in. He's like, "This is what I want to see," and he did it. And I watched him to the T. I'm like, I can do that. And so I went, did it, and I couldn't. I landed in that bag after that fall. I was like, okay, it's time to flip my hips over, because you're looking down at it like and then it's like you got to do that last flip quickly because you got to fall, you know, through the audience. They got to see you falling and not flipping. And then at the
Oh,
last
wow.
minute you flip over because you got to fall like you got shot or you're dead in the air.
But then
Like a high fall, they're like this.
land safely for yourself towards the very end.
Towards the very end so you could do it again on the next scene.
Ah.
So I did that, and I was like, all right, I can do the stage stuff. I've already got that. I've been taking acting classes at Coca and everywhere I could. And then so this girl gets up and she's nearly last. Some people, most people didn't do it, but there were like a handful of people that did it, and they did it well. You could tell that they were going to be in the show, but there was other people that had better talents, for acting and singing and stuff. But maybe this high fall wasn't going to be for them. But there was a girl, and she got up there and she was kind of, not feeling it, kind of, I was relating to it because I felt like that when Wade Spire dropped in at the Powell warehouse, I was like, okay, I can tell she's really
She's
feeling this.
listening to Slayer. She's on
Yeah,
shrooms. She's
yeah,
ready,
right.
dude.
Yeah, everybody else did it. And she's like, oh, okay, I'll do it. And then so she falls and doesn't quite flip over right, and her knees pile drive her face. Like she lands
Oh,
on the back of her neck, and her knees came down and blew her face up, dude. Like
oh my God.
ambulances, fire department. So it was like it was the end of the audition, obviously, and
Mm.
she ended up like just busting herself up really bad, broken nose and all that shit. And so he ended up calling back and giving me that story. We hung out as long as we could, but it became, you were in the way after a while. And he's like, all right, everybody break, I'll be in touch.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's probably the last time that audition ever happened like that. It's Six Flags. And, but anyway, he called me back. I got on there and ended up having to stop shooting for that local TV show that was really just fun. I mean, I wasn't
Yeah.
making any
Getting
money on
experience
it.
of anything,
Getting
right?
experience
Yeah,
is what
yeah,
I called it. And it
yeah.
wasn't really my vibe. It was like, I was like, I think I was like maybe the only white guy on there. And,
Yep.
I was kind of like the token thug. I didn't real
What
excited
was
about
your
the
name
part.
on that show? I remember
Ethan.
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 I thought the
Yeah.
girl called you something else. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was probably like E or
Sweet
something. Her
Pea or
name was
Sweetie.
Carmen.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
That's
And it kind of ran its course. I still did episodes, but I wasn't like a main character
yeah.
anymore.
So
You
how long
know,
are you
he
going how often are you going to Six Flags in? Is this an every
Oh,
weekend
that was
again?
every weekend. Oh
Oh
yeah.
my
All
God.
weekend,
For
every
the whole
weekend.
season that it's open?
Yep. Yeah, for the Robin Hood
Did,
show only, like you didn't
did,
have I didn't have to be there all day, but
Yeah.
it was for the Robin Hood show. They did like a 1 o'clock, a 3 o'clock, a 5 o'clock,
did
and it
you
was a blast.
incorporate the skateboard? Or no?
No, it
No.
just had regular old fucking tights and a fucking
Yeah.
stupid outfit, and
I didn't know
pretty
since
much
you said you brought
I
one the
had
first try.
meager amounts of lines, but I was mostly just getting, shot, mostly
Yeah.
falling out of there and like, oh no,
Yeah.
That's incredible, man.
But yeah, and then like that kind of ran its course, it's like next trip is you got to go to Hollywood and go to that next level again. And I knew what that entailed.
Yeah,
I already had
yeah.
been through that. And I'm like, yeah, no, you
Plus
know,
you got yourself a young family at the
I got a young
time.
family,
Yeah,
and
yep,
my main job was to be a dad,
yep.
and even though I was in my mid 20s at that point, it was still like a lot. It was
Yeah,
like, I had the energy, but still, to had be the responsible person to have a paycheck and be married and stuff like that. It was like it was a lot,
yeah.
to try to continue pursuing stuff like that. So I was like, you know what? Time to get out the skateboard. That's always free,
Yeah, yeah. I
Always
remember,
got the homies there.
yeah, coming back around. That's about the time Glenn had the mini ramp going at by the brewery, perhaps. Was that
Yep,
about then?
yep.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
exactly when that
Yeah, those
was.
were some
Yeah.
fun Friday night
Oh man, that
sessions.
was so fun on Friday nights,
Yeah,
dude. We
yeah.
would just go like Jared Jones was listening to Seinfeld on his little transistor radio like this, We're all getting like really stoned and skating and just having a blast. It was all about the roots of, having fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Anybody at any time could be, the guy.
yeah. It was fun,
And
man.
there
You
wasn't
gotta,
really a, I feel like there wasn't a good mini ramp for a while until Glenn made that. It was like accessible for a bunch of
Yeah.
us to go to all the time.
Yeah, it
yeah,
was
You were
central,
always
we
like
could all get
searching
down.
for the one backyard one that was falling
Yeah.
apart.
Oh yeah, it
This
was
one,
so
yeah.
fun. And then
Hmm.
Schlafly right next
dude, a
door.
microbrewery next to a mini ramp. Like,
I
come
know.
on, like,
Hmm.
it was,
Where's the problem?
yeah,
Yeah.
that was fun. Yeah, that was good. But
And
yeah,
yeah, go ahead. So
no, I just remember that you started popping back up, and
Yeah.
yeah, you started
yeah.
popping back up and skating a little
Yeah.
bit more.
yeah, I was back down to earth. I
Yep.
was gonna just settle in and just get back to my roots, forget. I didn't like totally give up stunts altogether. It just kind of phased out. I left my name on the St. Louis registry for stuntmen, and I would get calls every now and then, and sometimes it was just like, I don't really think it's worth it,
Yeah, it just doesn't line up for schedule and life and
Right.
everything, right?
And then I was getting calls for like John Deere commercials and shit to, jump off a tractor and shit like that into a hay bale or whatever, like safety
Yeah.
issue calls, like
Yeah.
this is what not to do, and I was like, this isn't what I want to do, that was like my last one. It was like a John Deere commercial and it was like a safety type thing, what not to do. And, you could, lose your leg, or you
Yeah.
could fall off, you should
Ugh.
wear your seatbelt or this happens, and I was
It would
just
go
like,
in the
this is,
online training video these
yeah,
days.
exactly. I was that stunt man at that
Oh,
point. I'm like,
wow.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good, dude.
Yeah.
That was like, and funny enough, that was probably my highest check for it was
Oh,
like $500 and I was there for like 2 hours. I just
Yeah.
had to do some dumb jumps off of a tractor and shit like that and tell
that's
you,
funny,
that's not
dude.
It's that
safe.
John Deere money.
Don't be like me. I was getting that John Deere money.
Yeah.
Dude, that's funny.
It was funny. And I was just like, I'm just gonna just do this. I think I got like back into boxing actually, mildly.
That's yeah. Were you
I
living
had
in?
some fights there.
Yeah. Were you living in Soulard at that
Yeah,
time? Yeah.
exactly. I was living in Soulard. Yeah.
Which there is a boxing gym down there, right? Is it
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Broadway?
there is. I didn't go to the Broadway Athletic Club, but I went to Panda Boxing. And
Okay.
once again, that door opened up with Coach. He picked me up to go to a Halloween party. I was doing nothing.
Yeah.
I think at this time I was probably separated from my kid's mom and not looking back,
Yep.
and he's like, "Hey man, I'm gonna pick you up, man. We're gonna go to a Halloween party." I'm like, all right. So there was not enough time to get a costume or anything, and he wasn't in a costume, but there were people there in costumes. But he was like, why don't you talk to my buddy here? He is a fight promoter, and of course, Glenn had already talked me up. He's a stunt man. He's been in kickboxing. He was a
Oh, no
boxer when he was a
way.
kid. And so this guy Steve was like, hey, I'm a fight promoter and I also got a gym. Glenn says, you've had some fights and maybe looking for another one. And I was like, well, what does it pay? And he's like, we could probably scrape up a few $100 a fight, I was
Yeah.
like, all right, I'll be down there on Monday. And he
No
didn't
way.
expect me to show up. He even said that when I got there, he's like, I didn't think you'd show up. But, he's like, how many guys I've talked to at parties that say they want to be a
Sure.
fighter?
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's made big plans at parties
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. And Monday comes around and they're like, yeah, fuck that. I was drunk.
Hey, does Steve own a bar?
I think he had something called the Hoosier
Okay.
Bar or something like
Golden
that.
Hoosier or something. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because he also had the Hoosier fights.
Okay. I've seen
Yeah.
some of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
South
guys would
side.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, outside guys would just like, put on gloves and just bang it out.
Wow.
But I
Incredible.
went down to his gym and started training pretty heavy. And then he, lined up a fight for me at the Schlafly Farmers Market.
No
No way.
way.
And yeah, like
Wow.
Glenn was like, "Oh, dude, this is great." He wanted to be in my corner, but I already had a corner, with guys that were serious.
Oh, Glenn, like with the water bottle or something
Yo,
like
he
that.
wanted to
Yeah.
be he wanted to be Mickey. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
no, well,
Throw in the
because
towel, coach.
I know, like Aaron Whalen sponsored, like he had a restaurant called Bastante. And he's like, put
Back
my
to this
name on
guy,
your
yeah.
trunks, and I
Yeah.
can kick a few $100 towards your camp, and I had a couple other sponsorships going, and ended up winning the fight, but had a broken nose going into it from training,
Oh, whoa.
so I was a bloody mess, but had my hand raised. And I think that was probably the end of it for me as far as like wanting to do something breakout,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
beyond just, working like, side time,
Yep.
but all of that stemmed from those highs that we would get from skateboarding,
Yeah. Trying to.
being able to go out and think of a trick and do it, That
Yeah.
feeling is unbelievable. Even if you
Yeah.
saw it, but add your own thing to it or your own style. That was so like such a rush, that just stuck. I have trouble now not going skating, like redefining like myself, like going to the gym and lifting weights. I'm like, is this really, is this enough?
It's got the aspect of
Yeah.
like focus and seeing results and seeing
Yeah,
goals for
it's
sure.
something. Yeah.
Adrenaline scaring yourself, probably
Not
not, but
there. No.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
But there's even the whole like you're saying a little more, you don't have to scare yourself. You could just learn
you just
or
go
do
chill.
something
Yeah.
maybe you've never done yourself. You get
Yeah.
that little hit of dopamine that is
And you
unreal.
do. You
It's
get a
fucking
small nudge
crazy.
of that dopamine, and you're like,
It's
this is
wild.
still it, man. I'm here with my buddies. I
Hmm.
mean, the three of us have hung out so many times with Baba and Joe and Dana, and it's just like we're kids again, like a Friday night. We're
Yeah,
hanging
yeah,
out at Morgan Ford or Saturday morning or
Yeah.
whatever, or down at one of the DIYs, and you really have a hard time distinguishing if you're 14 again. Even though
hmm,
when you stand up or run out of something,
Later
your
that day.
body
yeah,
will let you
yeah,
know. But in your mind, that nostalgia is so real,
Yeah.
it's
hmm,
so powerful.
That's great.
yeah.
Um, Hey, something I wanted to kind of touch on, and probably this kind of starts to lead into it. You start building stairs, yes? Or
Yeah.
is that the
Yeah,
right way
I
to
got,
describe it?
yeah,
No? Okay.
nowadays, yeah,
Yeah.
custom staircase
Custom
builder.
stair.
Like I got into, the need for a full-time job when my kid was born, so
Right.
30 years ago now.
Your daughters are
And
that old? Really?
30 and 27.
No
And they're
shit.
both out in
Yeah.
LA. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Surfing and just having a blast. But yeah, I had a need for a paycheck and then, did like every single job in the construction field and then, late 30s, early 40s, I was like, I gotta specialize. Otherwise, I'm just dying of boredom out here. And then plus the money and stuff like that. And having a specialty in any field is better off than not. And so I got into custom staircase building, and it just kind of really took off for me because I poured everything I had into it, similar to everything else, like, okay, this is the first time I'm going to take myself as a career person seriously. Like I've done the boxing and that takes a lot and the skating, all those things you learn as a skater to, keep trying and not give up, really had an impact. So it's like, let me just go ahead and pour all that type of energy into this and learn. I learned a lot of math on YouTube, through the Khan Math
Dude,
Academy.
just hearing that you guys discuss mathematics that are involved, like that, it seems pretty
It's
elevated,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit, with trigonometry, and geometry. All the stuff you thought you'd never use with cylinders and stuff is all involved with building those spiral staircases, which, I just recently sent you that picture of my masterpiece, and that's that double-sided spiral that you would see like in Gone with the Wind
Yeah.
or something like that, or on the Titanic, and then like I enjoy doing it. It's still work,
It's
but
incredible,
like
dude. Like the
I've
final
had
products. Incredible.
yeah, like I work for a company. It's a union company, so I'm, got a union pension and, all the benefits and stuff like that. But the company I work for had an opportunity to do a staircase for Lin-Manuel Miranda in New York, and I was the guy I agreed to do it, and they were like, yeah, we want you to do it, and so went up there and ultimately spent 2 years off and on in Manhattan, in a high-rise suite, all paid for, and I'm like, wow, dude, this isn't bad for
Yeah.
a guy that graduated out of high school and never even thought about college, and here I am in the middle of Manhattan on the company's dime,
Dude, that's rad.
Awesome. Yeah.
and then that ended up getting into Architectural Digest magazine, AD magazine,
Oh, wow. That
That's
that
doing a
was
nice.
write-up.
the project you were going back and forth every few
Yeah,
weeks for
yeah, every few
2 years
weeks.
ago or something like
Yeah,
that?
yeah, it
Yeah,
was 3 years ago
3 years
now, but
ago.
it took about 2 years to do, and it was
So it's in
on
that magazine maybe like last year or something then?
I think it was 2 years ago. It came
Two
out.
years
It
ago.
was it was like during COVID and then towards the end of
Hmm.
COVID. And then the ad came out. AD Magazine ran a small like spotlight on Lin-Manuel Miranda's home,
What is
Yeah.
that?
featuring.
What is Lin-Manuel
He's
Miranda?
a he is a an actor slash theater guy that produced, directed, and starred in Hamilton and
Oh, like a big
Oh,
Broadway
sick.
guy.
the big
Yeah.
Broadway
Yeah.
guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got
Mhm.
it.
so he was like a big deal up there in last few years and probably still is. So they did like a in-house, what are the stars, what do they live like? And showing his remodel of this historical flat, that was turned into a residential
That's incredible, man.
Almost
space.
like you got your skate photo. You got your Architectural Digest photo.
Yeah, you got your checkout.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Got your
exactly. And then from then I've just kind of been doing, the same caliber of stuff, locally, getting in, like in Ladue Times and, downtown write-ups for some double spiral staircases I've done, in like an up and coming commercial space down here. It's right in between SLU and downtown. There's some condos. It's
Yeah.
like Thomas Development, but I mean that doesn't mean anything to anybody. But they did like a what's happening now downtown spotlight and had my staircases
Oh,
in there.
sick. Sick.
It's pretty cool.
sweet.
I mean not
Oh
a
yeah.
big deal really, but compared to actually doing the work, it's like, oh, that's all they used.
Yeah, well, yeah, the
You know
hours
how it
that go
goes.
into it,
Yeah,
right?
I
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
right? And they're like, damn,
But
they kind of, you
it's
know.
spotlighting your stuff though, either
Yeah.
way. Should be
Yeah, I'm
good
yeah, I'm proud of it for sure. I've
good
Should be.
worked hard to, get those.
advertising for you, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then right now I'm currently doing stairs, but also I added into starting my own consulting company, and my website's just about
Oh,
launched.
sick, dude. Hell
That's
yeah.
sweet,
Yeah.
man.
It's called Golden Ratio Consult Staircase Consulting and
Golden.
Design.
Okay. Right on.
Sweet.
Golden
Yeah.
ratio staircase consulting and design. Okay.
Yeah, and that's,
Heck yeah.
people call and all me all the time and they're like, "Hey dude, I've got a two-story house and I want to do this, but I've got these constraints and stuff like that." And it's just
Mhm.
an hourly thing that I plan on doing once I retire from the Carpenters Union
A
at
little double
60.
dipping in the late age.
Double
Yeah,
dipping in the late age,
yeah. Yeah, I
and
like it.
Yeah.
yeah,
But
and
I,
that's
I bet
pretty
it'll
much.
turn into like the most money you've ever made
I hope it
doing all the
does,
consulting.
That
Yeah.
would be nice. I would really look
Yeah,
forward
yeah.
to that, and pretty much that's it, man. Nowadays, I'm hanging out with my girlfriend Brooke, and we live downtown, and that's where you
Nice.
see this
What am I
view.
looking at in the background there? What is that?
This is the Syndicate building,
Okay.
and she's on the 16th floor, and that's the east view.
Oh, nice. Looking towards
Nice.
Illinois.
Yeah, looking towards Illinois.
Oh,
Yeah.
right
Yeah, is
on.
it the
Yeah, yeah.
Stan Musial Bridge or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Stan Musial
yeah,
Bridge. We
yeah.
figured that out. We were coming home the other day and like, what is that bridge? I'm like, I don't know. It might be the Eads Bridge. It might. So she looked it up
Yeah,
and it's actually the Stan Musial Bridge.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Pretty cool.
Well, dude, I've always been your story's fucking interesting. It's always it would like just
I've lived it.
yes, exactly. You've lived a
I didn't
few
waste
lives.
any time.
Yes,
Well, I
and
did,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
didn't.
you got a lot of
yeah,
experiences. That's
A
good.
lot of experiences, well said.
Yeah. Yeah.
for sure.
Matt, is there anything on the checklist that we didn't cover?
I don't think so. I don't know. Um, I was wondering, so back to like the Architectural Digest kind of analogy, did you ever have a photo that got ran and say like Trans World or through Harms or like
Yeah, I
all
had a
the
couple
Harms
of
like stuff?
photo graffitis that Harms
Oh,
shot,
sweet.
and Dave Kohler, I think, shot a couple that I got in Trans World, or I'm trying to think what they are, but one of them was at Elm,
Really?
and I was doing a high flying method over that main hip, Todd,
Yeah.
where you do
Hmm.
that crooked grind.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Flew over that like at dusk, and it turned out to be a cool pic. I think Dave Kohler took it,
Dude,
and that got
that's a
published.
incredible clip in Joe's video, right? Was that
Yeah,
Joe's
Yeah,
yeah.
video?
it's in. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it
yeah.
was maybe the same day.
Yeah.
So That's in a photo graffiti, you're saying?
Yeah, that
Oh
is
wow.
definitely
So
trans-worldly.
like the
So
2000s or something, or
yeah, something like that.
yeah,
2002 or
cool.
three, maybe something like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds about that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, huh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and then BBC ran an ad that featured my
Yeah,
name, as for
I was
part of the
talking to Todd
team,
about that earlier.
which was
Yeah.
something, because it was so hard just to get your name recognized, because there was no cell phones or
Mhm.
anything like that. If you were in the Midwest, you're pretty much unknown until you went to California,
Dude, it was definitely a
from
different time, man.
yeah, it was definitely a different time. It was extremely difficult to get noticed
Yeah.
unless you went through the competitions and stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, one more on the list, I guess. We
Yeah.
could geek out about some stuff. So,
Thanks for doing this, dude. Fucking
yeah.
awesome
Thanks
catching
for
up with
having
you
me,
and
man.
hearing all
It's
this.
it's yeah, I'm stoked to be in part of the process with you
Yeah,
guys. The
man.
Rusty Bearings is pretty sick, man.
Rusty bearings, dude. It's
I was
always great talking with everybody because we know stuff about you, but we don't know everything. Nor, dude,
you
Guam.
got
Guam.
quite
Yeah,
a
that
bit
one
now.
blew me away. You were born in Guam. It's amazing.
Yeah,
I didn't
exactly.
hear
Yeah,
it
no,
right
I
at
did.
first. I was like, is that some town in Illinois? Like, what?